The Committee of the Whole of Cleveland City Council on July 10th, 2024. I'm going to start with our law department and Commissioner Jones. We had an amendment on the table regarding the $450,000 contract for the safety technology. The law department has brought to our attention that these are direct awards legislated. So if our assistant law director can please review the issue.
Thank you, Chairman. Patty Aston with the City of Cleveland Law Department and as representative for the council. The amendment was to ordinance number 640-2024, and I believe it was Councilman Polensek to amend to come back to council to implement when they chose the professional services vendors, and there are in the ordinance as proposed and submitted, those sections 1 through 5, they are direct awards. So anything outside of these professional services that are listed, and if they came above 50,000, if they found out later they needed additional, they would have to come back if it's over that 50,000 threshold as it is. But these are all direct awards. You'll see in Section 2, Section 3, Section 4, Section 5.
Thank you. And Mr. Jones, if you can explain the direct awards and why you believe that's necessary to implement this project.
Yep. Through the chair to the council members. So the direct awards are really just because we've identified the vendors, we've done our due diligence, and we want to move forward with the contracts as quickly as possible.
Okay. So we had an amendment on the table to bring back, before any vendors were selected, in the legislation, the vendors are already identified as direct awards. Does that make sense to everybody at the table?
No.
Okay. So,
Mr. Chairman, point of information.
No, that's fine. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, well, here's the issue. Where are they at in there? And then this ordinance?
Section.
I'm looking at 666-2024.
640.
640.
Chairman, to the council member.
Apologies. This is 640.
The Motorola.
Okay, so this is for professional services for $450,000.
Yes, sir.
And you selected 3 vendors. What are the names of the vendors, Mr. Chairman, to the director?
Commissioner?
Through the chair to the council member. So that's Motorola Solutions, Benchmark Analytics, and Before Health Management.
Okay. And the only reason, Mr. Chairman, and just make sure I'm clear here, the only reason why you're going with these particular vendors is because they're the only ones that could offer the service for these particular programs that you're implementing in the RMS CAD system?
Commissioner?
Through the chair to the council member, that's correct.
Okay. So but no one else could do the job?
Through the chair to the council member, this is their software, so it's proprietary.
It's their stuff. Okay.
It's proprietary.
No further questions, Mr. Chairman.
So what we'll need here is a repeal of the amendment provided to 640 because the vendors are direct awardees in the legislation. Does that make sense to the table?
Makes sense. Mr. Chairman, I put the motion down to repeal.
Repeal the amendment to 640. Do I have a second on that motion? Second. I have a second. Is there any discussion?
No discussions.
Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes.
Cadwell? Gray? Harrison?
Yes.
Harsh?
Yes.
House Jones? Jones?
Yes.
Casey?
Yes.
Gray?
Say yes.
Yes. Moore? McCormick?
Yes.
Polensek? Santana? Yes. Slight?
Yes.
Spencer?
It's a yes or no.
Yes or no? Wait a minute.
Well, we'll go with the folks that were at the table when the motion was made.
There you go. Now one of them said yes to, it could be $1 million.
Thank you. The motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
It was Councilman Polensek's amendment.
Yes,
So if I wanted
yeah.
to make sure he understood.
All right, will you pull him aside and
Sure.
describe it to
Can I
him?
have 2
So,
minutes of your time?
Human Resources, come on up.
No.
How we doing?
Good, Chairman.
You're
Thank
used to
you.
being at the end of the line.
Yes, tail end. That's okay, though.
We wanted to make sure we corrected that for this fine gentleman.
I appreciate that.
All right,
Nice to
Director.
see
I've got 2 for you. Is that correct?
Should be 3.
Oh, 3 for you. That's right. They were stuck
sir.
together. All right. We'll start with ordinance 634, 2024 by Councilmember Griffin by departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Human Resources to employ one or more professional consultants to provide the professional services necessary to design, develop, and deliver a comprehensive training program for departmental staff performing human resources functions for a term of 1 year with 2 one-year options to renew, exercisable by the Director.
Yes, thank you. I'm actually really excited about this one. This is to establish essentially an HR university. As you all know, we employ about currently 85 HR leads throughout the city. We are decentralized. Well, that's probably a good thing, right?
And that's only because you have that monotone, great voice. I would probably have to record
I should have
you
been a singer.
so I can get some sleep.
All right,
You know,
all right.
so,
Continue,
but
Director.
if you could speak in the
Outdoor voice, indoor
microphone,
voice.
it
Okay.
would be helpful. Thank you.
Okay. Is this better?
Yeah, just speak up, please.
Okay.
Yes,
So
loud.
essentially, this is to establish essentially an HR university for the city of Cleveland. As you all know, we have approximately 85 or so HR leads throughout the city of Cleveland. We are decentralized. We are dealing with a lot of historical policies and procedures related to a variety of HR topics that are sometimes applied differently across these departments. So this is really to bring us all together and establish essentially a university to deliver at the end of it essentially an internal city certification, if you will. So we're looking at 7 modules essentially, which include general HR knowledge, relationship management, business administration, cultural effectiveness, professional acumen, talent acquisition, and then finally business continuity. We expect to do 3 cohorts with covering each of these 7 topics and more for all the existing staff. And then eventually we'll probably look to sunset the program at some point, and then just everything will be handled internally once everybody's up to speed. So that's the gist of it, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
No, listen, Director, it sounds like a great program to bring together your employees and get everybody on the same page and a common understanding and certification. So kudos to you.
Thank you, sir.
Chairman?
Do I have questions on 634?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Councilman Joe Jones?
Yes. So basically, what you're doing is trying to more or less bring all of the human resources together under one group, and that probably hasn't been done in quite some time. Is that right?
Through the chair to the councilman, no, and we still are technically decentralized, but this is certainly an attempt to standardize and centralize all of our policies and procedures and processes.
Right. So how spread out are we? How spread out is human resources?
Through the chair to the councilman, we have our central HR, of course, here at City Hall, but then we have HR representatives and leads throughout the city in every single department, down to division level.
So you have
lower.
them placed in every different department?
That's
as a human
correct.
resource person?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And that would be here, so the central is here in the city. Now, in the city where we have different departments, do we have anybody working on the other floors, or is this just all in the first floor?
Through the chair to the councilman, it's through all floors.
So
But
you do have people in all the different floors?
Yes, so each department here, or I can't say every department, the majority of departments have their own HR lead.
And let me ask this question. Why was it ever put together in such a willy fashion?
Through the chair to the councilman, that's a question unfortunately I can't answer. However, based on the organizational structure of the city with individual appointing authorities. It doesn't surprise me that there were decentralized HR functions.
Right.
Historically.
And I guess the question I'm coming at here, because this is so important, Mr. Chairman, this particular subject matter that we're talking about in terms of human resources, because a city has to fundamentally function with making sure that we acquire talent and people who have the capacity and ability to carry out the various tasks that we need to carry out in this city. I've never seen such a spider kind of like out approach the way the city has it now. So in your profession, and you've been doing this for quite some time, Mr. Chairman, to Mr. Cole?
Yes, sir.
Have you ever
Almost
seen
30
anything
years.
like this?
Through the chair to the councilman, no, but then again, I also have never worked in a municipal government setting before.
Mr. Chairman, I would suggest, because I support this piece of legislation because you're asking for $75,000, correct?
Correct.
Right. I support this, but I also support, Mr. Chairman, having a real functioning human resource department. And I think that for quite some time, we have labored to have a professional system in place that can really go out in real time and get people, bring them in here, process them, and get them to work. And what I've experienced, Mr. Chairman, and what many of us have experienced sitting here at this table year in and year out is budgeting for certain positions, and those positions don't get filled. Well, there's a reason to my colleagues who are sitting here today, those positions don't get filled. It's because of how this long-stated process, when it can take 3 to 6 months for someone to go be a dog catcher, really? And you're already down in the department by 6, 7 people at that particular period of time? And you still have a lot of areas in the city of Cleveland that have positions that need to be filled. So I don't think, Mr. Chairman, that the structure that's set up, and this is something I would, suggest to on our side as well as the administrative side, how do we have a more efficient and effective human resource system? And how do we begin? I think we have a department that goes in there and does analytics, doesn't it? Have they looked at your department and decided how to redesign it so we can have one central location where we're actually going out and getting the talent? Because right now we're about to lose our CFO. Correct, Mr. Chairman, to Mr. Cole?
Yes, sir.
So how do we go about getting another person at their caliber? And how long would it take if your department has to process that?
Through the chair to the councilman, we're already working on it.
Right. So, but normally, now I know it's an important position, so I presume you'll have someone pretty quick. What is the turnaround time of filling vacancies?
Through the chair to the councilman, that varies. But I would say to your earlier point, the city's already made quite a few strides to not only fix the processes that you've referred to, but also have brought on recruiters, are streamlining some of our time to hire, procedures. We're definitely making strides. Although we don't have a centralized HR department, one thing we are doing, though, is standardizing and centralizing the policies and procedures and way we conduct business across the city. So even though it's not the same umbrella, everybody will be using the same processes, procedures, and systems.
So it sounds like my colleague Stephanie House-Jones said this morning, can we still operate off, at least be on the same book? So it's good that we're going to be on the same book and you're getting on the book, and I commend the administration. But it was just saying, hey, how do we really begin to look at making some substantial changes in the department where we can really go after talent, be on offense, and start really bringing in and hiring people, because we're having a great big hard task here on the human resource side in terms of getting police officers in the city of Cleveland. So I think that should be part of your task. I'm not sure if you are part of that, are you, Mr. Chairman? To Mr. Cole?
Through the chair to the councilman, we are a part of it. The HR department and the civil service department work hand in hand with Department of Public Safety on the events, the hiring processes. We're hand in hand with them to try to get more police officers on the street.
Yeah, because the only reason why I asked Mr. Chairman and Mr. Cole is because I've never seen the HR department ever at the table talking about bringing on more police officers. The only time I hear about recruitment is that they have their own team. But if we have a Superman human resource department, which you will be heading up, and have it centralized, I think that we'll have a better, effective approach. Or look at and troubleshoot, why is it that we can't bring police here in the city of Cleveland? Now, I don't know about some folks, but I'm really concerned about the drop in these numbers and would like to see everything possibly thrown at it to get more police back. At least get to bringing us 300 more police officers that were already budgeted to be in that in place. And right now, no one can really say
75.
how many people are going to be brought in to fill these vacancies. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I fully support this piece, and I yield the floor back. I think Mr. Cole is a great human resource director. From what every time I've had a chance to talk to you, you've been very professional. So I really appreciate it. And then sometimes when you do talk, you do put me to sleep. So I appreciate it, Mr. Chairman and Mr. Cole.
My wife says the same thing. So.
All right. Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Harsh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. After $6 million for tasers and $18 million for radio equipment, this might seem like a very small request, but I am a little bit concerned about this. It feels, Mr. Chair, like this is like vehicle maintenance coming to us and asking for a grant so that somebody can come in and teach them how to fix cars. Like, it seems like this is already the core competency that an HR department is supposed to have, and I don't understand why the department needs a consultant to come in and teach them how to do HR. Could you just maybe back that up through the chair to the director and explain one more time why we need a consultant to tell HR how to do HR?
Director?
Through the chair to the councilman, that's not the intent of this. What the intent is that you have dozens of HR leads that work in departments throughout the city that have varying skill levels. In some cases, don't have or very little HR background. They hold other positions in which the HR lead portion of it is part of their job. With that said, what that creates is a very large bandwidth of skill. Some may be strong in some areas. Someone may be great in labor, but they have no idea how to implement FMLA. Or
through the chair, isn't that already the HR department's job, though? To work with those other people on how to do the hiring, the firing, the professional acumen, the cultural effectiveness. Isn't that already the job description of the entire department?
Through the chair, respectfully, some of it, and we will be doing some of that training. However, there's a lot of moving parts in which we want to get everybody on the same page. And there are going to be cases where we may look to employ a particular vendor who has a specialized course on business acumen with best practices, in which we can bring each of the cohorts through. So it would be a combined effort. I understand what you're saying, but I don't think it's as simple as that.
Okay. Through the chair, Mr. Chair, we recently allocated a certain amount of money to go into HR software. I think it was a $10 million allocation that is going to be used to upgrade the software that the city uses for hiring. Through the chair to the gentleman, who is in charge of overseeing that systems implementation?
Through the chair to the councilman, it's I would say two main departments, being ITS and HR, are overseeing that HCM project.
And through the chair, how's the progress coming along with that?
Good. On track.
Okay. Mr. Chair, the ordinance doesn't have a not to exceed clause, and it also doesn't have a dollar amount attached to it. I have grown increasingly nervous in my 2.5 years when I don't see maximum dollars included in ordinances or not to exceed clauses. I would ask if we could amend section 3 with a not to exceed at the end of it.
Councilman, there's a certificate of funds attached to the ordinance for 75.
Is that an A file? Is that what that's considered, a file?
I don't know what an A
Because
file is.
I'm just looking at the ordinance as it's presented on the tablet. 634, right?
Yeah, so the physical ordinance has an administrative report, certification of funds, the sum of $75,000.
On the executive summary.
Nope, on the actual ordinance. You want to pass
Okay.
it down to the councilman? Hey, pass it down.
Yeah. So
So to the law director, if the certificate of funds is $75,000, they're not legally permitted to go above that. Is that correct?
They would have to
Come back to council.
okay.
ask for use certified.
Okay.
But I'm not necessarily sure on that specific
I'm sorry. Let me get.
Yeah, I'd like to look into that again because I'm more used to it done a different way. But I believe because this amount was certified as $75,000, if that's the ordinance, that in order to get the certification
So-
funds, you would have to go back to y'all.
Councilman, do you want to put that in the ordinance anyway?
Well, I guess
Not to exceed 75?
for my education. So if this is attached to the ordinance, it's considered part of the ordinance,
A
even if it's
file,
not
yeah.
in the actual language of the ordinance, yellow paper.
That is my understanding. It's a
And-
file of the ordinance.
And that's what the law is telling us. It's like an A file when you attach a file to an ordinance. This is considered part of the ordinance as well.
Yes.
Okay, so this is just not on the tablet, but this would be a cap on how much, and then
But if you'd like to put the language in the ordinance, Councilman, I don't.
if it's all the same, it's all the same. I don't need to be duplicative. My fancy word for the day. Okay. Thanks. That wasn't on our tablet. So, yeah, Mr. Chair, it's still not clear to me, except that it's potentially a department in disarray with a lot of need for, I mean, we just gave $10 million to this department for software that we were told was going to help streamline hiring process. It seems like the department's main job is to manage relationships with employees and to do hiring. But if they need a consultant to come in and tell them how to do that or help them learn how to do that, it seems regretful that that's the state that we're in right now. But if that's the state we're in right now, then I suppose we have to fix it. So unfortunately, I'll support this, but not happily.
Okay, thank you, Councilman. Councilman Conwell.
Thank you very, very much. Mr. Chair, it's in training. You know, thank you. You know, Director, looking at training, this training really will save you money in the long run. You have trained people. So are your people that you're going to train, have trained, you're looking at how many people again? To the chair, to the director?
Through the chair to the councilman, but we think it's going to be 80 to 85 or so.
People train? And then what they'll do, where they go out and train other people's supervisors, whatever the case may be, or directors, assistant directors, because training is ongoing.
Correct. The intent is not for them to train others, but it will help them assist the departments, assist the directors in HR-related matters. You know, there's so many components that HR covers. There's many hard skills required, as you know, many soft skills. It's a vast array of knowledge and experience that someone has to have to truly perform HR functions.
Yeah.
And if they're appropriately trained and trained exactly the same way in all the competencies, the effects of that are wonderful, not only for the city in terms of the way it runs, reduces liability and risk, makes things timely, streamlines processes. There's so much to having everybody on the same page, as you know.
You know what? Let me ask you this question. In a great world, you ever thought about having, let's say, 5 to 6 or maybe 7 trainers? You train from here, but you end up eventually creating a training division of your department, and they just go out and they train, because training is ongoing, dealing with culture, dealing with, you know, the culture of different departments. What do you think about that?
Through the chair of the councilman, I actually really like the idea. I don't think, though, as a practical point, that it would be sustainable, and I'll tell you why. My team and the HR leads through the city are skilled in many areas. There's not one person I would point to, though, that could do a contemporaneous full training on, you know, on culture, as it should be, right? I think it's important where you have a true subject matter expert that comes in, and that's what they do. Like, that's their job, right? They're knowledgeable. They're up to date on everything that should be trained, or they should be training on, you know, to individuals who are the recipients. Just as a matter of note, too, we do perform trainings. As a matter of fact, July 19th, well, every month we have what's called a policy insight session. This month we're training on discipline.
You train the supervisors on discipline.
So this is any individual who, HR lead or individual in any department that is responsible for actually any of the discipline processes and procedures. So that's an example of something that we train on, right? Because that's a city process, that's a city procedure.
Right.
That's not a general. That's not a general competency that we would train on, or that we do train on, unlike something else that we would have a subject matter expert come in and train on.
Yeah, you need an expert. With this training here, I was listening to Councilmember Joe Jones mentioning that the finance director will be leaving. I mean, you gotta, when I look at your training, you have to cultivate your workers so that when someone leaves through attrition, anything happen through attrition, it's next man up. Next man up. That's why training needs to be ongoing. And I'm looking at what you're doing in here with training. I see you have relationship management. Through the chair, what is relationship management?
Through the chair to the councilman, that could consist of anything from the appropriate way to work between, let's say, a director and a supervisor on an HR issue, internal customers, external customers, politics, big P, little p. I mean, it's a wide variety of things that could be covered in that. As a matter of note, too, to something you said, you know, we are also going to be doing a citywide training assessment that's going to be kicking off in the fall. That was something I came to you early on in my time here to get approval on. So we have a company coming in to go across all departments of the city and try to evaluate what the needs are related to supervising, just in general supervising. And then also a performance management piece.
Yeah, I can
So,
see that part.
you know, everybody is, we would be able to train on all the necessary core competencies, not just HR, just in general, and then be able to evaluate people, correctly.
Yeah, when you evaluate them, and you'll do what with the instruments to evaluate them? Do you continue with training, or you know how to do pre and post testing from it?
Through the chair of the councilman, yeah, it could be a wide variety of things. It could be what they're great at, what they may be, a little bit deficient in.
Right.
It could play into potential promotions. It could play into potential discipline, for that matter. But it's to get a good handle on, what the competencies are, where the people or employees are at in those
Gotcha.
competencies, and then be able to do something with that information. One piece of which is going into your point earlier about succession planning.
That's
Right.
important. You got to cultivate workers.
You do, and you have to get people in the right positions to replace, people that would be departing, retiring, or moving on.
Attrition.
Attrition.
You know, I'm going to say this, and I yield to my other colleagues. A lot of times people leave director to the chair because they're not trained properly. They get frustrated and they leave because training is ongoing. You have to constantly keep cultivating people. And the discipline part also, disciplines are not always bad. People get write-ups. You could train doing your write-ups, or you catch someone before there's a write-up and you coach and counsel. So
That's right.
I'm for training and even having a division, because here's the other thing. When you do, you give people workloads, sometimes you got to cross-train workers, sometimes you do job enlargements, whatever the case may be. All that comes through training. And I'm frustrated sometimes when I see when the mayor gives his transmittal, we don't talk about training. The training is not in there when you guys show cost of labor. And I'll close with that, but I'll listen to you.
Thank you, Councilman. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Alrighty, any additional questions on 634 2024? Hearing none, 634.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes. More discussion.
Slightly more.
for our Assistant Law Director?
I can do it. You can say it.
Okay, let's have our Assistant Law
I'll
Director
say it.
present his findings.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr.
In
Chair.
this seat, he's Assistant Law.
I'm the Assistant Law Director here. Mr. Chair. So I stand corrected. I just want to correct something that I said earlier. The certification that is on that administrative sheet that's in front of you, that's an estimated amount of the contract. If you desire to have a not to exceed amount, I recommend that you put it in the
Great.
ordinance.
Councilman, you want to make that motion?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I'd like to motion to amend the ordinance in section 3, line 2, read fund number 01-0402-0-6320, not to exceed $75,000.
Do I have a second on the motion? Second by Councilmember Kelly. Any discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Misha? Ganwell?
No.
Ray?
So that they can't spend more than $75,000 on this contract. The idea is to cap the contract at $75,000, so they can't go over. In other words, they don't have a blank check.
Ray?
Councilwoman, yes or no on the amendment?
Process.
Yes. Yes. Harrison? Harsh?
Yes.
House Jones? Jones? Casey?
Yes.
Kelly?
Yes.
Moore? McCormick?
Yes.
Valencia?
Yes.
Santana? Yes. Sly?
Yes.
Spencer? Yes. Star? Yes, 1 minute.
The motion carries. 634-2024 as amended. Stands approved. Please sign. Ordinance number 720, 2024, by council members Griffin, by departmental request, emergency ordinance to amend section 5 of ordinance number 194, 2021, passed March 29th, 2021, as amended, relating to salaries for various classifications. Director.
Thank you, Chairman. This piece is related to the ongoing reorganization at the Department of Port Authority, Port Control. This is related to two specific positions, one of which is the secretary to the director of Department of Port Control. It's to increase the salary to $220,000 and to add an assistant director of Port Control, is a new position with corresponding pay band with a maximum of $215,000. Just for a little bit of context, the airport industry is not like many other industries, particularly when it comes to salaries. The salaries in the airport industry are generally far greater than similarly situated positions in other fields. For the city of Cleveland specifically, these are a little bit higher than the same positions outside of port control, but they're basically market with the airport industry. So as part of the reorganization and the ability to attract good qualified candidates into these positions, we really have to look at higher salaries. The addition of the assistant director of port control is part of the vision of the reorganization, is another line of management.
Thank you, sir. And we've got our friends from Port Control here today. Myself and Councilman Slife met as the chair and vice chair of the committee with the division on these changes. Can you please describe the role of secretary to the director as well as assistant director?
Oh,
Yes.
Okay.
Port Control.
Okay, sure. Mr. Chairman, thank you. Yeah. So this position is more, I know it says secretary in the description, but the job description is not necessarily that of what you would consider a traditional secretary, right? It is more of a chief of staff type position to oversee, the administrative functions of the organization.
Thank you. And the assistant director role?
So the assistant director level is basically an executive level position that there'll be, I believe there'll be a few of them that oversee the different larger sections of the airport. All the different functions, such as, HR and what else? Operations and different, the different various sections of the organization.
Thank you. As is every position, this is not funded by Cleveland taxpayers. Is that correct?
That's correct, Chairman.
So these are dollars that come out of the airport fund funded by the airlines. Is that correct?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, yeah, all of the airport funds are funds that are generated through aeronautical revenue and through rates and charges with the airlines. That's correct.
Generated by the airport.
You got it. Yep, correct.
Okay, I've got, Councilman Slife, do you have anything on this before I go to the list? Sorry? Nope? Okay. Councilman Polensek.
Thank you. So, let me find it here. So, I can understand, Mr. Chairman, and my colleagues, and to the administration. I'm keenly aware that we have to be competitive with regard to key positions. But explain the justification for creating another position. We saw this during the budget process, creating executive positions. And yet, all of us are confronted here at the table constantly by not having enough staff in critical departments, building and housing, and I understand the separation with the enterprise accounts, fully aware of that. But if we look at work in front of it, we don't have enough people to cut grass. We don't have enough people to do this. We don't have enough people to do that. We hear it constantly. But we're creating executive positions or upper echelon positions. Why the additional position? Explain that one to me.
Maybe answer. Through the, pardon?
They're not additional. These were existing.
Go ahead.
Well,
Through the chair to the council person, these actually are not new positions. Port control historically, airport specifically, because port control, of course, includes the waterfront. So we are speaking specifically about the airport system. We have traditionally, I've been here since 2010. At one time, we had 8 executive positions at the Department of Port Control with airports, as well as a chief of staff. Then the chief of staff evolved into the position, which was formerly held by Fred Szabo at the time, was assistant director. So that position with the secretary title is the number 2, which we had up and through our previous director about midway through, and then we didn't fill that position. So none of these positions, these are still lesser executive positions than we have had, and we recently, as you know, had 2 people leave port control that were in executive positions. So the business lines have all been broken down between Dennis and I right now are currently the only 2 executive positions handling all the business lines and operational lines.
okay, Mr. Chairman, who is the secretary to the director, Department of Port Control now?
Through the chair to the council person, that is currently vacant.
That's vacant. Who was there?
The last time we had someone in the number 2 position officially, it was Fred Szabo, and he was under Robert Kennedy.
Who was that again?
It was Fred Szabo, and he
Okay.
fell under Robert Kennedy.
Yeah, okay. And then the assistant director of Port Control, who's that now?
That's our position.
Yeah, through the chair to the council person, there are vacancies in that. There are multiple people that will be in that role, and there are a number of vacancies in that role right now.
Okay, how many, Mr. Chairman, to the staff at the airport, how many vacancies are there in administrative positions at the airport?
Through to the chair to the council person, I'd only be guessing if I told you, but there's quite a few. I can follow up
Okay.
with some additional data on that for you.
Okay, so, and I'm going to make that request.
Sure.
And then I want to say to Human Resources, the statement was made quite a few. What are we doing to fill critical positions?
Through the chair to the councilman, we have made, I think, great strides in filling the positions that you mentioned, particularly in building and housing and others.
Airport, you should have a bunch of positions open.
Yes, there are still a bunch of positions open. One of the big dynamics we are facing, though, is we're just not getting the candidates. Part of that is based in rate of pay.
So do you, and again, I'm not going to belabor the point because we've got a lot of things to do today, but does the department look at other major airports, look at other major municipalities as it pertains to their pay within what I would call the Midwest region?
Through the chair of the councilman, yes. Actually, Port Control completed a study that included rates of pay. One of the challenging things, though, that we can't keep out of the conversation, though, is the many of these positions that you're probably referring to are bargaining positions, which involve collective bargaining. So we are going to be re-engaging collective bargaining. We've already started, not with that particular unit yet, but
So
we're
these
going to have to look at it.
these are not at-will positions then?
They're correct. They're not at will bargaining positions.
Okay, you know, all I'm saying this to you is that I've been here a long time. And in the day, we never had a problem hiring people around here. We never had a problem filling positions. In fact, we would get people, we'd have waiting lists for people who are looking for jobs. So again, if we're having this problem collectively across the board, then I would think somehow, some way, we're going to start looking at pay scales. We're going to start looking at the benefit packages. We're going to start looking at, we actively within the body, we looked at Division of Police, and we came to the realization we had to up the pay for police officers. We had to provide a hiring bonus, okay? We had to do other things. At the end of the day, we have to have positions filled. All I know is one thing, this is what I know without any fear of contradiction. I get calls every day about the delivery of basic services. That's what I get my calls on. And we're not able to provide basic city services here because I keep hearing we don't have the people, we don't have the people. We've got to figure out how we're going to fill these positions. We went over 2 years without having an inspector general, which is in violation of the consent order. And then at the 11th hour, he said, well, it's because of pay. Well, doggone it, then increase the pay if you have to, if we have to be in compliance with the federal monitor. You can't have a position open for 2+ years and be in non-compliance. We'll never get rid of the $750 an hour people. At the end of the day, but that doesn't fall on us. And I want to repeat again, council does not hire, we do not fire, we do not deploy, we do not administer. That's up to you folks. But this council's been supportive of this. If something makes sense to us, we support it. But so I don't know why we have to keep talking about these doggone positions at this table. Look at all departments and divisions and do what you have to do to start ramping up the delivery of services. End the story. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilman. And I'll just add on to, number one, the airport being an industry with amongst itself, but civil service is a huge problem. It is a huge, huge problem. And if you are given an offer at the Pittsburgh airport and you can start in 4 weeks and Cleveland takes 6 months, which one are you going to take?
Yeah, that makes no sense.
You're going to take the Pittsburgh airport. It's easy. This is not hard. And it's also preventing the airport from hiring diverse candidates. I don't understand why we're not doing more on civil service. It's a mess. It prevents us from hiring diversity in our community. And I don't see what it's producing as a benefit. So I know that there's conversations about reforming that, but if we need to do it from a legislative, or a charter amendment, whatever we got to do, because we are losing diverse talent because of that dinosaur of an organization. I don't have any strong feelings about this. All right, Councilman Casey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, to the director, are we adding all 6 of these? Special assistant to the mayor, secretary, director of departments, or are we just adding the 6th, the assistant director of port control?
Through the chair to the councilman, just the assistant director. That's just the only new one. Number 6.
Okay, so that's so we're not adding, the first 5 are already there, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And then, Mr. Chairman, to Dennis, what's your title?
My current working title is Commissioner of Airport Development.
What's your title?
Through the chair to the councilman, my current is Commissioner of Finance.
So you're both commissioners?
Yes.
Correct?
Working title.
Working titles.
You're not civil?
No, my civil service title is Administration Bureau Manager.
We have the same, through the chair, we have the same civil service title.
All messed up.
Yeah.
That's what we're trying to fix.
We're trying to fix it.
You have a secretary of the Civil Service Commission at the airport, from the chairman to commissioners, I guess, director, right? There's a second, I know that. But there's a secretary to Civil Service Commission, right? At the for the Department of Port Control.
The position exists of secretary to the director of port control, correct?
Is there, Mr. Chairman, to the director, is there currently a person who holds the title as secretary of the Civil Service Commission for Port Control?
No, sir.
Okay. If somebody wants to get hired at the airport, Mr. Chairman, to the director, do they have to go through the civil service down here at City Hall, or does the Port Control have their own civil service commission?
Through the chair to the council member, no, they do not have their own civil service branch with Port Control.
Okay.
And also just to note, it's not a civil service position. So
It's a secretary for the Civil Service Commission. right? So the way I'm reading this title that's here, right, even though we're not adding it, it's already at the Department of Port Control. It seems to be that there's a secretary for some reason to the Civil Service Commission.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, I misunderstood. I thought we were still talking about Port Control. There is no secretary to the Civil Service Commission currently. That's correct.
And that Civil Service Commission that is spoken of in this right here, that's our Civil Service Commission down here, not a separate one for Port Control, correct?
That's correct.
So if I'm Joe who wants to go work at the airport doing whatever we do at the airport, not airline related, but actual, I want to clean the dilapidated bathrooms or whatever, right? Okay, I have to be hired through the Civil Service Commission down here. I don't go apply at the airport.
That's correct.
That's correct.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. I've got Councilman Hairston.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Councilman Casey, for asking those questions and clearing that up. Just a couple of questions. So, through the chair to Mr. Kennedy and I'm sorry, what's your name again?
Christine Gilmartin, through the chair.
Yes, thank you. I've seen you many years here. My apologies. So, how many buildings fall up under the Department of Port Control? I know we have our main airport, Burke, and what else?
Through the chair to the councilperson, if you're, we have Hopkins, we have Burke, and we also Port Control oversees North Coast Harbor as well. But if you're asking number of buildings, there's a whole lot of buildings out at the airport that are
right.
under Hopkins.
I mean, like
right? Yeah. Okay. Locations.
Correct.
Yeah. 3.
Okay, 3. And how many employees fall directly under our operation, not of the airline or the concession services?
Through the chair to the councilperson, I don't know the exact number, but I think it's around 420, I believe, is our head count. 420, 440, somewhere in there.
Gotcha.
Yeah, full-time employees, and then we have approximately 25 seasonals that we hire for snow removal operations.
Gotcha. And the secretary position that we were talking about, that's at a maximum $220,000, you said they function more like a chief of staff through the chair, correct?
Through the chair to the councilperson, yes, that's
so
correct.
So they'll kind of oversee the 450,000, 450 plus individuals who fall up under your jurisdiction.
Through the chair to the councilperson, yes.
Gotcha. And then the assistant director of Port Control, you said that that's not a new position we're adding to the budget, or it is? Through the chair.
Through the chair to the councilman, it's not adding an FTE, it's adding a classification. So,
so what do we swap out through the chair? Did we swap?
Through the chair to the councilman, it's I believe going to replace the administrative bureau manager level.
Okay, so they took that out and then we just replaced the position.
Correct.
And was that position at the same minimum maximum pay rate, or that was adjusted as well?
Through the chair of the councilman, I don't remember that classification's pay band offhand. I believe it's lower than this,
Okay.
But I'm not sure by how much.
So it was through the chair, it was one of the roles that our 2 individuals here had. It was another one of your roles, correct? Yeah. Okay. To the chair, to the director, or folks from Port Control, will either of you be leaving your role and moving into one of these other roles that are being added to the department's secretary or the assistant director position?
Through the chair to the councilperson, that is not up to me. That is a question for Director Brant Francis.
Okay. Yeah, I was just asking. I didn't know whether these were.
I do not know
Okay.
the future of the those positions, and again, that'll be up to our director to make those decisions.
Yes, sir. All right. Thank you. And lastly, I'm again, as Councilman Lindsay indicated, the calls I get are for quality of life issues, right? Not the airports. And not saying that, we don't understand or we can't support or wouldn't support, the needs that we have around our city where we don't get the calls for. However, when I kind of peeked over to my left and my man, director, Mr. Williams, who a $215,000 is almost double his salary. He has, over, how many divisions you have? Over 10 divisions? 100+ buildings, right? More than 1,000 employees? And we're doubling the salary for a person who has almost triple the amount of, things he has to do. I guess I'm not sure if I support this. It just seems a bit much, right? For the work and the activities at the two positions, based on what you indicated today, and just kind of the size of the entity. I know that there's some complexities to the work that has been done as well. I understand that completely. But a $215,000 or $220,000 maximum salary amount, when I'm looking at a person on my left who struggles, to keep up, not because of any fault of his own, but just because of the load that he has, right? To deal with, and I'm not understanding the balance here. And I know that a lot of this is paid out of, or all of it's paid out of, the fees and the airlines and all the other services that are, provided at the airport. Regardless of the source of the funds, I'm concerned about, the positions and the amounts and what falls up under those different positions that are being discussed today. I'm concerned when I'm looking to my left and I know what's happening here.
Through the chair to the councilman, I do understand your point, and I think it would probably be beneficial just to add a little bit of context. When you look at airports such as Cleveland, Pittsburgh, other comparable airports, those are the salaries that these positions make. So when we go as a city of Cleveland to try to recruit the best talent into these positions that would report to Director Francis, it may require a higher salary. But that's good, bad, or indifferent, just the nature of the airline industry with airports. So not to take anything away from Director Williams or myself or anybody else who's in a comparable position, however, it's just the way that industry is designed. The risk we run is that if we don't have the ability to pay more, and we can't attract the right talent, we either will not get the best person or may not, depending on it, get any candidates. They'll go to a different airport.
Yeah, no, to the director, I hear you. I hear you. 100%. I mean, we can make that case for any position, to be quite honest, right? That we need to pay them more, or we won't get the candidates, and so forth. Yeah. But you have a person who, and I just use director as an example because he's sitting in the room. Yeah. He has a hard city outside of being a Cleveland City Council member. The hardest job in this city. That is trash. That is streets. That is grass cutting. That is snow plowing. Right? Potholes. Right? I mean, I don't know how he sleeps sometimes. I say the same thing about all of us. Besides us, he has the hardest job in the city, and to look and see that a secretary to the director of the port has a maximum salary of $220,000, almost double what a person who has triple the work is being paid. It doesn't add up to me, right? What the young folks say, the math isn't mathing, right? And so it just doesn't. I hear you with the industry and so forth, but and maybe that's the case. But for me, this council member, that's not the case for me, and I'm not sure if I'm supportive of this this piece here. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Joe Jones.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I think I'm going to start back up where my colleague, Mr. Hairston, left off now. But before I go into it, I'd like to talk about this number, 7/20/2024. This particular piece of legislation, Mr. Chairman, has a number of, in Section 1, it talks about the passage of the various different ordinances from 2021 all the way to 2022 up to 24, which we see this piece that's in front of us. So is this the original legislation, Mr. Chairman, to the director that has these 6 categories of classifications? Is this the same thing that we looked at, and the only change that we're talking about is what has been underlined here?
Through the chairman to the councilman, in terms of additions, number 6 is an addition, all of number 6. So assistant director of port control is a brand new position with the associated pay band, and then of the existing. The only change is in number 4, which is the maximum salary for the secretary position.
And Mr. Chairman, to the director, do we have job descriptions of what these people will be responsible for doing?
Through the chairman to the councilman, yes, there are job descriptions.
Do you have that and can make that available?
I can.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So now, when you added this assistant director of port control, which is as low as minimum of 31,000. So can you get someone to come in there and work for 31,000?
Through the chairman to the councilman, no. I wondered if this might come up. So just as a general comment, as it relates to the whole pay band ordinance, the reason why it's listed that way is because all of the positions where the minimum is listed that way, versus coming up with, I guess, more of an abstract minimum.
All right. So now, what will this new director of port control do?
Through the chairman to the councilman, there are several areas in which the assistant directors will cover. I know one that was highlighted, as Chairman McCormick mentioned earlier, when we spoke with Director Francis, will oversee marketing and business development, for instance, which is something that has been identified is a need for port control. I know that there's operations and HR. There's I believe 5 or so. 5 or 6 total areas.
So they're going to be over about 5 or 6 different areas?
Each of the 5 or 6 will have certain areas that they'll oversee and then report to the director.
So that director would be responsible for doing what again?
Whatever area they're assigned. So, for instance, the one that I mentioned was marketing business development.
Right.
So there'll be an AD of marketing and business development, for instance, and that will be the sole responsibilities or those areas for that particular assistant director.
So does anyone else here could add on to it, Director Francis?
Not Director Francis, but happy to answer your question through the chair to the council person. To be honest, I'm not that knowledgeable of this piece of legislation. I was not planning to be up here, but happy to share the information I do have.
Well, if you don't know, does the distinguished lady down there know? Because she always
she's
knows
probably
everything.
in the same boat as I am. But
I know she knows.
Yeah. But I'm happy to share with what information I do have, right?
Okay.
So, to my understanding, there'll be an operations individual. There'll be in marketing and air service development, business development person, an HR position, airport development position, I'm drawing a blank now. What else do we have? Finance,
Thank you.
right? Sorry. And did I miss one?
You said
I
it.
said airport. And so, yeah, that's, I may be missing one, but just those large bucket areas of positions that,
Okay, great. We got the main man, so come on in. We glad to have you. We're trying to get some clarification here on this spot, and there's been quite a bit of discussion. And the reason why some of the discussion is because we have some directors, and I think that Mr. Harrison brought out one that works really hard. And we see you guys come in here and fancy all like, but we don't know exactly what it is that you're fundamentally doing. And especially asking for the kind of funds that you're asking for, we should know what it is that this new Assistant Director of Port Control is actually going to be responsible for. So if you distinguished gentlemen could give some clarification, I'd be appreciative sitting here at this table.
Certainly, through the chair to the council member. So essentially, I need to build my senior team. At this point, I am extremely light in terms of having the support that I need to be successful long-term within the department, given all the things that we have, not only on our plate today, but what's expected going forward, sort of what's on the horizon. So over my first year, I've done a lot of sort of observing, taking a look at our structure at the point of my arrival, also looking back at structures that have been representative of our department in the past, also looking at structures where I've been director at other airports, also looking at other peer set airports, other medium hub airports, to get a sense of where I believe we will be best placed in terms of me having the type of support that I feel I need in order to be successful. So what I'm essentially attempting to do is my predecessor took some steps to retire some positions and took those functions and dispersed them among the remaining members of the senior team. Perhaps some functions that didn't really naturally fit under those individuals. And I respect and appreciate all the support that I have received from the two members of my team who are sitting here today, as well as some who have departed. But essentially, I need to rebuild things at the top of the organizational structure. And so specifically, there are two positions that I'm looking to create that in some form or fashion have existed in the past. One would oversee the entire business or revenue side of the house, and the other would be responsible primarily for marketing, communications, air service development, those types of functions. So that is bringing in a lot of the business. The revenue is sort of driving, bringing in the business on the airline side. That's the marketing, communications, air service, communicating that out. Also, all the marketing functions that are associated with that. Business development would be taking over all of the leases, the relationships with our business partners, things of that nature. So
this person, because I want to give you just a little breath, because I sound like me. You were running down the hallway to get here.
Yes, I was trying to get here quickly, so my apologies. So but happy to be at the table.
I'm gonna give you a moment to breathe, because I got to work out myself and so I won't be breathing so hard.
All right.
So, but let me just say this. The assistant, and I can appreciate you building your staff. That's very important to make sure that you have the competent, capable, right people in the place to do what needs to be done.
Correct.
And to position us as a city and I think at this point we're one of the busiest in the northern part of Ohio.
Through the chair to the council member, yes. Cleveland Hopkins is the busiest airport in the state of Ohio by passenger served, and we include Cincinnati in that, even though the airport is physically in Kentucky, but it serves largely a market in Ohio. So we are the busiest passenger airport within the region.
So how many people we run a week? Excuse me, I'm
Depends.
sorry.
Oh, no worries, Councilman. So it depends.
Wait a
on-
minute, our colleague got to get his technology together. All right.
It happens. Suspenseful
Sound like
type
Star
music too. Yeah.
Councilman, that is 10 minutes.
All right.
You're at your 10 minutes, sir.
Well, I appreciate you giving me an extension here, please.
Well, I didn't say that. That beeper
We
is
were
ringing, my man.
interrupted, all this going
Do you want to come back on the list?
Can I finish here on this question?
Quickly, thank you.
Thank you.
We are, for the record, folks, we are not even halfway through our agenda.
Right.
Yes, we are. I'm just telling
And
you.
I'm going to be here with you. So
You were asking about passengers, is that
yeah,
correct?
because see, this is, Mr. Chairman, this is important because we don't get an opportunity to do this often, is to brag about our airport and about what and how successful it has become and some of the great work that it's doing. And I want to give the director that opportunity to lay that foundation. And then I support, Mr. Chairman, this particular piece of legislation here. But I want Mr. Cole to understand and the administration to understand too that we have some other directors that work their butt off. And we feel that they should have an increase in pay. And so hopefully you got the word. And so hopefully you might be able to do something about that. But in the meantime, I would like for this distinguished gentleman here, who we appreciate coming into the city of Cleveland to serve us and to serve our public, to talk a little bit about the airport and maybe about some possibilities of expansion or building or its potential growth or the possibilities. And Mr. Chairman, then I'll yield the floor.
So through the chair to the council member, yes. So in response to your question about passenger activity at Cleveland Hopkins, 2019 was, of course, the last full year of business prior to the COVID-19 pandemic. That year, the airport served just over 10 million total passengers for the calendar year. This year, we're on pace to certainly surpass that, barring any unforeseen hurdles that remain for the second half of the year. So far for the year, we're up about 9% compared to 2023 and about 4% over the first half of 2019.
And how many people is that on the average week?
So through June, we should be just beyond 5 million total passengers for 2024 and are looking to at least reach 10.25 million passengers. If things continue at the current pace, we could see about 10.5 million, but we're being conservative. You know, we've basically budgeted for about 10.25 million total passengers for this year. So we're doing quite well. We are seeing more flights, more seats, more routes, and new airlines that have come in this year, existing carriers that are expanding service. So good things are happening across the board in that regard in terms of the supply, and the demand has been relatively strong in responding to that increased supply of capacity.
Thank you, Director.
And thank you, Mr. Chairman. And just closing, I believe that, you know, we need to take advantage, because I heard you talk about marketing here in this spot. We really need to highlight Cleveland's airport, and we need marketing and branding. We need to hear about how we serve our public, the importance of traveling to Cleveland and flying Cleveland. We need to really start putting Cleveland's airport out there.
Agreed.
And I'm not so sure. I would ask, Mr. Chairman, to the director, we need to get that funding in place. And who would that funding come from? Would it come from the carriers to brand it and constantly highlight it to continue to drive growth?
So through the chair to the council person, we have a budget each year for marketing, advertising, and so that would be within our budget each year. Next year, many of you may know that we'll be celebrating 100 years, the 100th birthday of Cleveland Hopkins. So we intend to celebrate that in appropriate fashion, but building into that the importance and significance of the airport and what it brings to the region, what it means to the region, and also setting the pace for the future in terms of what's to come at Hopkins.
Thank you, Director.
Thank you. Thank you, Director.
Councilman Starr.
I'll be real brief because I know you said you're trying to get out of here.
Oh, I'll hang all night. I'm just looking out for you guys. I mean,
Oh, no,
to do.
unfortunately, I don't have a wife, kids to go home to. I just have a puppy. So, when I got elected, the people sent me down here to do a job, and I'm going to do a job.
That's right, do that job.
And while doing this job for Ordinance 720, just for my making sure I understand, this is an opportunity to add the Assistant Director of Port of Control position, and then also it is adding a raise, I guess, to the Secretary to the Director of Department of Port Control.
Thank you.
To the Chair, to the table.
Through the chair to the councilman, it's just increasing the pay band to a higher amount. There's nobody in that position currently.
Okay, so you create a position and you're going to increase the wages for that pay, potentially, for the band? The chair.
To that. Through the chair to the council member, essentially what's happening is in this industry, Cleveland does not fare well in terms of compensation. And so what I'm attempting to do in establishing or reestablishing these roles within my department is to take an incremental step to at least allow for a bit more flexibility in terms of compensation, because I can tell you that even with this adjustment, the airports around us, the airports I mentioned earlier, Pittsburgh, I didn't mention Columbus, but Columbus, Cleveland, all of those airports pay substantially more than we do. And so the competition is fierce. And if I'm to have any real hope of getting strong talent to even be interested, taking a look at these opportunities, I need to at least have the ability to offer a salary that is a bit more competitive in terms of what is being offered by our peer set of airports today.
Okay, through the chair, can I send you my resume? Because I could do the Secretary, Director of Department of Port Control. I mean, I do have a master's in business administration, so I can do a little something. Can I just send you my resume? Because
point of order. Chairman.
Through the chair.
Point of order on behalf of Councilman House Jones.
He will have to recuse himself before he's actively lobbying for a position.
No, I just.
In the administration that
I know.
So, just FYI.
We are assuming he is playing around on there.
Yes.
I'm just saying, if I didn't, because man, we're underpaid, man. Like, what I'm looking at it as from this standpoint is the amount of work that we do, the amount of work that other departments do, man. I've never seen as many zeros. Like, just looking at overall, like, once again, when we were talking about budgeting, and the reason why I believe Dean Polensik made a request to add line items, man, you got special assistants making 6 figures and mid 6 figures, high 6 figures. You got different other positions that's also another assistant to the mayor, high salary, high role, and they're not even really managing employees or anything. They're just assistants. And if I'm going to be a glorified assistant and make all this money, I might as well resign and go make some money if I'm going to do this. But my question I definitely would ask to the chair is, so how do you determine these pay bands to be able to establish a good salary for all the positions that we have for the city through the chair to the director of, chief director of human resources? How do we come up with these pay scales and these pay rates the way we are? Because some positions that I may deem are well worth more as far as the roles and responsibilities versus other positions, when I look at the compensation, it doesn't seem to be any equity in it. To the chair.
Director, how are these pay bands established?
Through the chair to the councilman, pay bands are the guardrails, but salaries of individual people and individual positions within those pay bands vary greatly. It's really looked at in the pay band system down to the individual who's in a particular position within that pay band.
And then to my point, but then we talk about our recreation centers. We pay all of our general managers the same flat rate salary through the chair. Is that correct to the chief human resource?
Through the chair to the councilman, I'm not sure if they're all exactly at the same salary. There are some positions in the city that I know that they do look for all of the individuals within a certain classification to have pretty much the same salary, particularly those that are smaller classifications, meaning the number of employees in them. But as a general rule, at least since I've been here, within a classification, I've seen a wide spectrum of salaries within a pay band or classification.
I hear the classifications, so I just don't get the breakdown of it, because if I have a recreation center and I have 5 staff under me, and then somebody else has another recreation center and they may have 10 staff in you, but even though I have only 5, I've been doing it for 20 years, how does this person still make the same salary as me? I mean, that's what I was told during budgeting. That's what I've been told these last couple of years. The range and the salary is capped at a certain rate, and that's it that they have, even though 2 years ago when we had the Lime item, it had a higher range, but everybody was around that 50,000 range. And I just felt like that don't even make any sense to me. So this is my first time able to have this open dialogue conversation through the chair with you about that. I think that is not even right. When I'm thinking about the work that a center manager has to do as it relates to being on the front line with our kids, with our adults, with our seniors, and if they're risking their second shift opportunities to do anything else to be in our rec centers for $50,000, and then I'm looking here and seeing special assistants making $135,000, and then next you know that we need to pay somebody $150,000 for a consultant to do some work that person could do. I just seen like, where's the equity? Where's the balance? Where's the breakdown? Where does it make sense? Where does the math add it up? So that is just something I just don't understand, how we are coming up with these scales and these salaries. I understand that the port and the airport has some different things that they have to do within the industry that they operate in. But with that being said, I've never seen, since I've been here, any salary increase or band increase for anybody that's on the front lines at the airport. So my question through the chair to the director of the airport would be, what is the last substantial raise that we gave for the staff that are working on the front lines at the airport? When the last time have they got a raise? Did they get a raise this year? Or what does it look like for them to get additional funding through the chair?
And Chair, I would imagine they're unionized, so it goes through the process.
Many of them are correct. Through the chair to the council person, we are intending to come forward across the balance of the year with a farther reaching effort to adjust the pay bands of most of the classifications within the Department of Port Control. So that's something that you will be seeing in the next few months, certainly within the balance of 2024. So we do intend to make some adjustments there as well. The simple fact of why we're doing these now is just because I need more support for myself and for Ms. Gilmartin and Mr. Kramer. So we're doing those right now, but then shortly we will be coming through the civil service effort and then to council with the plans for the rest of the department.
Okay, yep, so I definitely will be on the lookout for that. Also through the chair to the Director of Human Resources, I know there's plans to be able to separate Parks and Recreation division, and they're looking to hire a director. I believe it's great to have a director that knows what they're doing, experienced, seasoned enough to be able to help some of our problems, as well as to pay. But we can't keep paying our staff in our rec centers the minimum dollars that they are making. That $15, $17 isn't cutting it. When you look at what's going on around us, Amazon is paying way more, and they're able to be more flexible. So in order for us to be able to accommodate that second shift, we really got to look deep inside of what we are paying our staff and and also in addition, what we are asking them to do to be able to make things good. But other than that, this is tough, Chair, and I definitely yield because I heard my time. You didn't boss mine like you did Joe Jones all day. But thank you, Chair. This is just real. I think we really need to look at how we are doing these raises and pay scales all overall as a council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Alrighty, Ordinance 720-2024 will be considered by the entire body this evening. Thank you. Director 722-2024 by Councilmembers Griffin by departmental request. Emergency ordinance approving the collective bargaining agreement with the Cleveland Police Patrolmen's Association Investigative Research Unit and to supplement ordinance number 194-2021 passed March 29, 2021 as amended by adding new section 59 relating to compensation for various classifications. Director 722.
Thank you, Chairman. This is to ratify the first collective bargaining agreement with this particular bargaining unit. It's CPPA, and the position is investigative research specialist. There are 3 people currently in this classification. The second piece is to add a new section 59 to the pay band, as it's a new bargaining unit with the associated pay rates, with the only nuance that the maximum pay rate is just increased by 0.5% in the pay band to account for any rounding issues.
Okay.
That's it.
Do we have any questions on a pay band for an investigative research specialist? Hearing none, ordinance number 722-2024 will be considered by the entire body this evening. Health.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I've got one, correct? You've been so patient for your one ordinance. Ordinance number 623-2024 by Councilmembers Conwell and Griffin by departmental request. An emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Health to apply for and accept a grant from the United States Department of Homeland Security for the Biowatch program, and authorizing the Director to enter into various written standard purchase and requirement contracts for courier services needed to transport Biowatch samples to the Ohio Department of Health for testing. Director.
Thank you, members of council. So just one-line summary is this allows us to accept money from the Department of Homeland Security to do our countywide air monitoring. Yep. And with me to answer questions are Commissioner David Hearn of Air Quality and Chief of Monitoring Brian Sokolowski.
Thank you. So this is an acceptance of a grant of $392,667. Is there any local match?
No, sir.
No, sir. And this is our air monitoring quality that we do every single year. The money we get from the
every day.
That we do every year, but this is the money we get from the feds for this
Correct.
program?
Correct.
Any questions on the cash we get from the feds to monitor air in Cleveland?
You have one question.
Councilman Polensek.
Mr. Chairman, I would ask through the chair to the administration if you could supply each member of the body as to what businesses, locations that have been cited since the first of the year in each of our wards for violation of air quality standards.
Through the chair to the councilman, that has nothing to do with this legislation.
I understand that.
But I'd be happy to provide that information.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Additional questions on 623? Hearing none, 623-2024 is approved. Please sign all relevant committees. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Port Control, come on up.
Oh, Chair, I see
Thank
you,
you
Chair.
for coming and for hanging out.
Have a great one, Al.
See you later.
I hope you learned something today, Director. Ordinance number 468-2024 by council members McCormick and Griffin by departmental request. An emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Port Control to enter into one or more contracts with Aero Cloud Systems, Inc. for the purpose of providing an automated airport gate scheduling and billing management software solution for the common use airport operations system for the Department of Port Control for a period of 1 year with 5 one-year options to renew, exercisable, it's been a day, by the Director of Port Control. Director, talk to us about 468, please.
Good afternoon, Chair and council members. I'm going to have Dennis Kramer, my head of development, to present each of these items today, as that was the initial plan. So he is ready to speak on these
You
items.
just came to
and
hang
I
out
will
with us then. All right.
Yeah, happy to be here, of course.
We love it.
So Mr. Kramer, please.
Mr. Kramer.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, or committee, I'm sorry. Today, yeah, we're presenting this proposed, requesting authority to enter into this contract with AeroCloud System, Inc. Last year, we did a competitive procurement for a common use passenger processing system, which is, software and equipment used for the various common use areas where airlines don't rent. When airlines who are not signatory to the airport, or an airline that is signatory needs additional space, they use what these common use areas. And so last year we brought on a new common use passenger processing system. And so what we're attempting to do here is we want to add an additional service that this particular company offers, and it is it's kind of that next step in this common use system that we have, and it is a common use gate management system. And so this is a system that helps us scheduling for the airlines, using different jet bridges, using gates, using ticket counters. They use this particular software to go into the system, do their scheduling. Right now we have staff, multiple people manually tracking all these things, how long airplanes were at a gate, how long they took to come in and out, all of that kind of stuff, just manually being done. And so what this service will do is automate that and make us a lot more efficient of an operation to manage this whole common use system. So requesting approval to enter into this contract with AeroCloud. It would be for a period of 1 year with 5 one-year options to renew, and requesting approval.
Thank you, sir. So as your plane is pulling up, and they'll say, ladies and gentlemen, there's another plane at the gate. Give us a minute. It helps with that a little bit. Theoretically.
Potentially, yes. Theoretically, we have about a dozen of these gates called common use, and so these are the gates that any carrier is able to use. Actually, several of our airlines that lease preferential gates, meaning for their primary use, also use common gates from time to time. So it does provide flexibility for the airport, both for those airlines that regularly service Cleveland, as well as some who may not.
Thank you.
Certainly.
Do I have questions on 468, 2024? Councilman Harsh.
Thank you. Through the chair to the director. I understand that the airport is completely paid for by the airlines themselves through landing fees and things like that. How does this work? I'm a little bit confused about the process here. So the funds are raised from the airlines, but then you're asking us to spend money that you're raising from them to enter into a contract with them. I'm confused how the money goes back and forth here.
Christine?
If you could.
Through the chair to the councilman. So the way it works is we put together our budget in total. Whatever airline revenue, non-airline revenue we can generate, parking, taxis, car rentals, I plug that in, and then I charge back to the airlines the shortfall, if you will, in the form of landing fees and space rentals. The contracts for things like this, where these common use gates, they are used by the airlines, but they are not already being paid for by the airlines. They pay for their preferential gates. So if it's a United gate, that it's solely United, that's a preferential gate. The common use gates are gates that can be used by any airline, signatory airlines, but also the charters, Air Canada, Alaska, people who are not Air Canada, people who are not signatory carriers at CLE are using these common use gates. They do not have their own gates, and then we charge them. But we also charge the airlines for using these gates, because one airline may use these a tremendous amount of time, and another signatory airline may never use them. So we kind of believe in you pay for what you use. So we do bill you for using the common use gates versus having your own preferred gate. So I don't know if that makes sense.
I think so. So through the chair, so the idea is you're looking for approval to enter into this financial relationship with the people using the gates, but this is no.
This is a software that helps with us to see the data coming through the common use gates that we bill them for.
But through the chair, this is not a request from the general fund. This is not money that would come from the taxpayers of Cleveland. This is still revenue generated by the airport through your operations.
Correct. Correct.
Okay, that's what's so weird. I'm not on your committee, so
No, it's
close up look at the airport.
it's funky. Yeah, it's funky.
Not general fund. It's
No,
money that comes
no.
from the revenue raised
At
by
the airport.
Yes.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay.
That's correct. Yep.
I'll trust the transportation committee.
We have a lot of conversations in our committee, a lot of nerdy conversations about aeronautical revenue and non-aeronautical revenue and the importance of both. And so if you ever want to nerd out with us, you come join us. 468, any additional questions? Hearing none, 468, 2024 is approved. Please sign. Ordinance 625, 2024 by Councilmembers McCormick and Griffin by departmental request. An emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Port Control to exercise the first option to renew contract number CT 3001 NF 2014-005 with Aircraft Services International, Inc., doing business as Menzies Aviation for professional services to manage and operate an airport-owned fuel storage and distribution facility known as the South Fuel Farm, located at Cleveland Hopkins International Airport. 625, Director.
Yes, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, once again, we'll have Mr. Kramer to present this item.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Kramer.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, so this particular piece at Cleveland Hopkins, we have a North Fuel Farm and a South Fuel Farm. For this contract is in reference to the South Fuel Farm. So we are currently in a contract with this company, Aircraft Services International, doing business as Menzies, and they lease, operate, maintain our South Fuel Farm. So we're in a 10-year agreement with them, and we're seeking authority to exercise a 5-year option with them for them to continue to operate, maintain, and run this particular facility. This facility feeds a lot of the United Airlines gates, some of the other gates on sea as well, but mostly the United Airline gates that this fuel farm functions and operates and feeds fuel to for airline operations. And again, seeking, we are satisfied with them as a tenant, and would like to continue our relationship with them in exercising this first option.
Okay. And this is a first option with one 5-year option. So you'll have to come back after the 5-year option.
This is the 5-year option.
Right.
Yeah.
After this expires, you come back for, okay. Do I have any questions on renewing a lease for airport fuel farm operations at the airport? Hearing none, 625-2024 is approved. Please sign. Ordinance number 627, 2024 by Councilmembers McCormick and Griffin by departmental request. Emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Port Control to lease certain office space located at Burke Lakefront Airport to conduct business as an architectural and engineering firm for a term of 1 year with 3 1-year options to renew, exercisable by the Director.
Yes, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, once again, Mr. Kramer will present this item.
Mr. Kramer.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, so this is pretty straightforward. We're requesting authority to enter into a lease with this particular company, CHA Consulting, Inc. They are a current tenant at Burke Lakefront Airport. We have a current lease with them that will be expiring. They have said they would like to, continue to be a tenant of ours at Burke Lakefront Airport. They are a good tenant of ours, pay their rent on time, all that good stuff. So we would like to enter into a new lease with them to continue to for them to be a tenant at Burke Lakefront Airport, and requesting authority. This would be, I believe we did this one as a 1 year with 3 1-year options.
Thank you. You are satisfied with this tenant?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
The rent will be market rate established by a third party?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
What questions do we have on a architectural firm leasing space at Burke Lakefront Airport? Hearing none, ordinance 627, 2024 is approved. Please sign. Ordinance 629, 2024 by Councilmembers McCormick and Griffin by departmental request. Emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Port Control to make alterations and modifications in contract number PS 2023-71 with Aver Pro Services, Inc. for the improving the inline baggage handling system at Cleveland Hopkins International Airport.
Yes, Mr. Chair and members of the committee, we are seeking to make improvements to a behind-the-scenes function. I will have Mr. Kramer present more detail, but we're seeking to make improvements to a behind-the-scenes function, but a very critical one at the airport at Hopkins, and that is the outbound baggage system for any of the passengers who are checking bags with their airlines traveling out of Cleveland. So with the higher volumes that we are seeing in recent years, we need to make some improvements for better performance of that system, and are looking to move forward with that in fairly short order through Avair Pros, which is the firm that actually oversees the operation of that baggage system. But I will now turn things over to Mr. Kramer for additional detail.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, yeah, as the director mentioned, this is not something that is, forward-facing that anybody will really see, but it's the behind-the-scenes work to our baggage handling system to improve its functionality. There are things called makeup units. We're going to be replacing those. It's all behind-the-scenes stuff. A second chance decision point, all technical baggage handling type stuff that we're seeking to increase a current contract that we have with Avair Pros for completing this work and requesting approval to enter into that. Thank you.
Okay, so the $1 million extra to the contract is to, okay, essentially continue improving the systems of the baggage.
Correct,
handling system.
Correct, and this services all airlines at the airport. Right. So it's a single system.
Okay. Do I have questions on 629-2024? Hearing none, 629-2024 stands approved. Thank you all.
Thank you.
I think we're done with you guys.
Thank you.
All right. Do I have any directors here? I have planning. Director, come on up. Oh, Frank is here too. Well, she's got one, so we'll get her in. Maybe. Oh, yeah, this is a technical one.
Administrative.
All right, Director, 43, Resolution number 43, 2024, by Councilmembers McCormick and Harrison and Griffin, by Departmental Request Emergency Resolution providing for the reassessment of the cost of services of the Ohio City Cleveland Business Improvement District to correct an error in the affected parcel numbers and declaring an emergency. You're taking a house out of the district, is that correct?
That is correct. So good afternoon, everybody. The Ohio City Special Improvement District, which was formed way before I was present in this role, it is in Ward 3. It is, a special improvement district that handles cleanups and programming and all of this stuff. This was established including a parcel number 003-33.002, single-family home. And we want to make the switch to 003-33003, which is a commercial property. Both properties shared the same property owner when the assessment was paid. When the owner prepared to sell the single-family home, the error was discovered, and the owner requested that the city correct the error. And so it's typical practice for us to not include, specific residential single-family properties in special improvement districts, mostly commercial. So this is a simple administrative fix to correct a number in a parcel so that, the tax increment bill will not be taxed for the single-family home. It's cleaning up an ordinance.
Do we have any questions about removing a single-family house out of the Ohio City Improvement District that was an error?
No.
The local councilman supports it. Hearing none, 43-2024 is approved. Please sign. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Public Works. The man who's underpaid. Underpaid, underappreciated. Very appreciated.
I appreciate you.
He
I
is
appreciate you
one
for
of the best
appreciating
of the
me.
best of the best.
My daughter's 12th birthday, and you got me to the table. I appreciate it.
Well, happy birthday. You should have stayed
That's
home.
why I was over there.
You gotta
So he needs to get double pay.
You gotta say something.
We got paid on game with her.
Come on. I would have put you a long time ago if I would have known that. Okay, no questions on these.
No.
All right, Director, you want to start with 33 or 521?
Probably better do 33. I think
All right.
Chief T wants to come in.
Ordinance number 633-2024 by Councilmembers Bishop and, ooh, I just broke my microphone. Okay. Sorry about that. Excuse me. All right. Let me start over. Ordinance number 633, 2024 by council members Bishop and Griffin by departmental request. An emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Works to enter into a license agreement with a vendor to install and maintain an automated teller machine terminal located in room 122 Vital Statistics for the use and convenience of the general public for a period of 1 year with a 1-year option to renew, exercisable by the Director of Public Works. Director.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this legislation is to provide convenience of the general public, as you mentioned, for use for freestanding ATM terminal. We talked several months ago, and the council body was concerned about continuing to keep extending the contract with Key Bank and wanted us to go out to explore other options and other financial institutions. And this is now, this legislation would approve us to go out for an RFP to see who may be out there. So this is pretty much straightforward what the council body had suggested they wanted.
Understood.
To move forward.
RFP for a teller machine in room 122. Do I have any questions?
No.
Thank you, sir. Ordinance number 633, 2024 stands approved. Chief, the next time your director has a 12-year-old birthday, you got to let us know that.
I was texting him. I said I would stand in for him.
All right. Please sign all appropriate committees. Yep.
I just have one question on 633.
Yep.
This doesn't say it goes out to bid. This is giving you the authority to enter into the license agreement with the vendor. So is this...
We're just going out for RFP on this one. I asked the same question too, and the law department did come back and say this was the right wording for it. But I agree with you.
Mr. Chairman, this doesn't say that they're going out for RFP. This is giving him the authority to enter into an agreement.
Right.
And it even gives you your length of time, your 1 year with a 1-year option to renew. So this is not a piece of legislation that's going out for RFP.
Through the chair to the council member, I would agree. I wouldn't mind if you want to hold this, but I did ask the same question.
And Mr. Chairman, Mr. Director, I know we held this a couple of months ago because there was concern with Key Bank and the fee and everything else, and this looks. It's definitely not to go out for RFP.
Councilman, via your concern and the director's consent, we'll hold that piece.
Okay.
So, Madam Clerk, 633 will be held. 521-2024 by council members Bishop and Griffin. Thank you, Councilman. By departmental request, emergency ordinance to discontinue the divisions of recreation and park maintenance and properties in the Office of Special Events and Marketing by repealing various sections under Chapter 131 as amended and enacted by various ordinances to amend Section 131.02 relating to the duties of the Director of Public Works, to create the Department of Parks and Recreation, to enact new Sections 133.01 and Sections 133.46, and to amend various other sections of the codified ordinances as amended and enacted by various ordinances relating to the foregoing changes. Director. Or Chief, my apologies.
Thank you. Bonnie Teowen, Chief Operating Officer for the City of Cleveland. On May 30th, we were at the Municipal Services Committee to discuss the right sizing of the Public Works Department by creating the Department of Parks and Recreation. This legislation pulls the divisions of recreation, park maintenance, minus the vacant lots, and public auditorium out of Public Works and places them under the umbrella of the proposed Department of Parks and Recreation. The remaining divisions will continue to stay in Public Works and will not be affected. Those divisions are streets, waste, motor vehicle maintenance, traffic, property maintenance, and parking. Vacant lots will stay within Public Works and will report directly to the director. The administrative staff will be distributed between the two departments. The reason for this is to allow a new director of Parks and Rec to work exclusively and comprehensively on a vision just for Parks and Rec. Streamline the city services and create a more comprehensive approach to managing and operating the city's park and rec centers, and to create a setting for partnerships specific to parks and recreation. The transition will be budget neutral at this time. We currently have a national search for a director of Parks and Rec. Application deadlines. The application deadline is July 22nd, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you.
Mr.
Director,
Chairman.
would you like to add anything?
Can you put me down?
No,
No,
nope.
sir.
You don't have the floor. Director, would you like to add anything?
No, through the chair, no, I'm fine. Thank you.
Okay. All right, I've got Councilman Bishop. This went through your committee for a hearing.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we heard this a couple of weeks back. I'm not exactly sure what date, probably about a month ago in municipal services, and we fully support this. Also, there is an interest in making an amendment to this piece of legislation.
Okay.
So I fully support this piece of legislation.
Okay, and you support the amendment that's forthcoming?
Yes, yes, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, and I'll ask to hold that until we have discussion on the ordinance. Councilman Mike Polensek.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm looking for it now on the screen. If Director Teeuwen, Chief Teeuwen would go over again, because to my colleagues, this is back to the future. This is how it once was. And I know because I chaired it in the day. It was called Real Properties. Then it became Public Properties. And then this, whoever came up, who was the rocket scientist who came up with this new formula, which has not worked. And I said to the previous administration, it wasn't working, and they agreed privately it wasn't working, and said that they were going to try to make corrections, but they never did it. So I need to understand again what is going to be what you define. You're calling it the Department of Recreation now?
That's correct.
Okay, so what's going to be under the, I need to know exactly what's going to be in the Department of Recreation.
Through the chair to the councilman, the current division of recreation, as it stands now, will be transferred over there. The division of park maintenance with everything except the vacant lots, and then the division of public auditorium.
Okay, so vacant lots are going where?
Vacant lots will now report directly to the Director of Public Works.
Well, I know Frank Williams isn't going to cut the lots, so who's going to cut the lots?
Through the chair to the council member, the same staff that are cutting them now, and we're going to continue working on the local contractor piece. That's why I wanted to keep it and not put it on a new director that will have so much to learn, especially if they may come from outside the city. It was my intent to keep the vacant lot program, to bolster it up, get it running right, and correct some of the issues with it, and not put it on somebody else to start all over from scratch. We do have some lessons learned that we're going to be working on during the off season.
Okay.
We're trying to get through this season, but we do expect some vast improvements in the program over the next couple of seasons.
Okay, so Parks and Recreation, Highland Golf Course, West Side Market, Recreation, Park Maintenance, Cemeteries, Forestry, Greenhouse, Public Auditorium, Special Events. Okay, then plus vacant lots, but Director, you still have not told me what division is going to be in charge of vacant lots.
Initially, I'm sorry, through the chair to the council member, initially, as I mentioned in the last meeting, it will report technically as its own division in my office so that I can oversee and set the policies up and get the staffing correct. And then we'll be coming back for some next steps in the future.
Okay. I just want to caution, I want to caution my colleagues, and I want to caution the administration. And Director Chief Teeuwen knows exactly what my concerns are, because when she met with me, vacant lots is a monumental task.
Major issue.
Monumental.
Yeah.
And I have seen it just mushroom and mushroom. Every time we take something down, we got to cut grass. So there's a whole issue about what we're seeding, what we're planting. That's a whole nother discussion. We should be planting something different, some different type of ground cover, as we've advocated for years. Clover, whatever, Crown Vetch, whatever the case may be, as the state puts down Crown Vetch. The issue of equipment, because if you put vacant lots under any other division, that division is going to implode. I want to state for the record, you put vacant lots under any other division here, it's going to implode if you do not have the manpower and the equipment. So what are we going to do with the vacant, where are the vacant houses going? Who's going to be responsible for maintaining and cutting the grass on the vacant houses?
Through the chair to the council member, vacant lots and vacant structures are going to be kept together and worked as it had been. Again, with this being a budget neutral process, wherever it goes, it's going to need to be managed well and also forecasted from a capital perspective as well.
But let me say this, and I think I share these sentiments, my colleague. I believe you're one of the most competent directors the administration has. Now, for me, okay?
Thank you,
for me saying that, I hope you're not demoted, okay? But the fact that, or you'll be out of here tomorrow. But anyway, but I believe you are. But I don't believe you have the equipment nor the manpower to do the job. I want to state that again for the record. You do not have the manpower nor the equipment to do this monumental job because we're spending right now, correct me if I'm wrong, in excess of $2 million to cut grass.
Through the chair to the council.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So what I'm hearing you're saying is that you're going to set up another division, but you just said it's budget neutral. So how do you do that and keep it budget neutral? You can't do that.
Through the chair to the council member, as we mentioned, this is just kind of the first start of it. We do plan to have to come back. Like I mentioned, we do have to bolster up our equipment. I have tractors out there that are from year 1987. So we really have to take a real look at our equipment and things like that. But we also have to fix processes, and we also have to fix supervision, and we also have to fix some other things too. Keep it in mind. The time it takes to procure that equipment, there's a lot of things in between that can be done to make the processes better, whether it be using technology. Also, what we're doing a lot of is demoing new equipment that has come online so we know what to purchase going forward. So I do expect to come back to ask.
But I'm going to direct my comments to the chief.
Okay.
Because you're not making a final call, Frank. I know that. So to the chief, do you understand the needs of this, with this new, soon-to-be created division or whatever? Because again, you put this under the division of streets, streets is going to implode. You can't do that. You can't put it under waste, it's going to implode. And I don't see any other place where you can put it. So unless you assign the proper staff, and again, I question, I'll state it for the record, I question whether you can keep it budget neutral in light of what we're dealing with, because none of us, if there's somebody satisfied with vacant lot cutting and vacant property maintenance, please stand up and tell me, because I'm not. Because I'm not.
That's right.
Because I was out yesterday morning again. I would have been out again this morning looking at lots and properties in the Glenville neighborhood where, I mean, I got a problem. I got to have assurances from the chief that she gets it. I hope you get it. Because if not, you're going to get it. That's the problem.
So through the chair to the councilman, after we met, I did take your comments to heart.
Okay.
Had a conversation with the director, and based on that, it was his suggestion to take vacant lots directly under him in the administration, so he really understands the need that's there. And he'll be working more frontline with that group, with that division, so that he does understand the equipment needs, the labor needs, and it's not diluted through the different commissioners. So this is a direct example of having the conversation with you making a recommendation, us coming back, having the conversation, amongst ourselves
Yeah.
and getting to
Okay.
now vacant lots, vacant structures will report directly to the administrative division at this time to the Director Williams.
Because all of us at this table are dealing with it every day, and it's a monumental problem. I know he gets it. I know he gets it. I just want to make sure you and the mayor's chief of staff and the mayor understand the severity of the problem. The mayor didn't cause the problem. The chief of staff didn't cause the problem. You didn't cause it. Frank Williams didn't cause it. None of us around this table. It was that mortgage meltdown. It was the predatory lending. It was the bloodsuckers who preyed on our neighborhood. It's the LLCs that have preyed on our neighborhood. And we've inherited this monumental task and this mess. But unless we understand the complexity of the problem and the immensity of it, we're never going to get a handle on it. So I'm here to be supportive, but I don't want to see this man. He's bald-headed now. He'll lose his beard in another year if he's got to handle this. And I don't want to see him implode and his department to implode because of this problem. So I'm stating it for the record. We're going to go into the budget, and remember what was being said at this table. You gotta have the troops and the equipment to deal with it. I rest my case, Mr. Chairman.
Perfect timing.
Okay. I timed that. The star would be on me, okay?
Councilman Joe Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, we've been talking about this for quite some time, and I think, and I don't want to beat the horse too bad on this one, because I think so much has been said about the situation. But what I want to do is commend the administration for really looking at the department and beginning to say, hey, this is just too big. It's just too huge for one person to handle. And that's one of the reasons why you heard us talking earlier when the airport director was here about your hard work, and maybe you should get some money too. And we don't know what they're doing, but at least we know what you're doing in our neighborhoods, and we appreciate you taking the time on your birthday celebration for your daughter to be here with us. To talk about this subject matter, which is significantly important to the citizens that I represent. And when I was here before, these departments were split up. It was split a little bit more than what it is right now. And so I would humbly suggest, Mr. Chairman, that, and I hear what the administration is stating here, but and it sounds like, and so I guess I can only ask the question, that you get this working up to, I guess, a workable solution, because it sounds like you're putting it up under you. You're taking full ownership directly for the vacant lots and abandoned properties, that you're going to get this, some kind of handle over this, it sounds like, and that you would probably be setting it to us. Now, I don't want to read more into it, so that's the reason why I'm asking question. Are we looking to at some point make it its separate department, like what's being talked about of making, I think, urban forestry its separate department? Are we looking at some point to maybe do that?
Through the chair to the council member, it's my intention to get a handle on the actual program, setting up a healthy program, and then make a recommendation. I would say, if I was to say today, it would not be my intention to keep the program directly in my office long term. It would be really my goal to set the structure up, get it running, make sure that we get a couple seasons under our belt to make sure we're doing the right thing, get some equipment in, make sure that we have a process that can be replicated throughout the city in all the wards, and make sure we have that structure even with however we do the outside contractors and things like that, and then make a recommendation for where it should, sit for perpetuity.
Yeah, it would be, my humble suggestion, Mr. Chairman, that that there is a director that deals directly with this, because Mike Polensik is correct. This has been a situation that has went from bad to worse, and it continues to hemorrhage. And the fallout for us as elected officials who sit at the table that have a vast number of these vacant lots and abandoned properties in the neighborhood. And I'm hoping and praying that our economy continues to be successful so that we can start building homes on these vacant lots. I think that our approach should be, how do we not only tear homes down, but how do we talk about building homes and building the kind of amenities that our residents would like to see, how we bring population back to the city of Cleveland. So I think that there's some it depends on how you look at this. We can turn this around into a positive in terms of vacant structures. And this is something I think that maybe Director, we could have a little bit more deeper dive in this issue of vacant structures. How can we put laws in place where the city is already taking care of these properties? How do we develop relationships with our financial institutions? How do we use our powers as a municipal corporation to talk about how we use eminent domain to take some of these properties over and get them back into convey condition and put them back on the tax rolls? One of the things that's important is, how do we make $1 out of 15 cents? And I think that looking at this in a practical way, because you have a problem, how do we make that problem go away? How do we make it profitable for the city? And how do we look at another look at this? And so with creating the department to itself can begin the proposition to have a good relationships with both the Economic Development Department in the city of Cleveland and community development, because right now we're in a situation where I believe that we have someone in place over the vacant lots, but that's an issue and it's dragging our city down. So for us to properly cut and maintain these vacant lots and structures in the city of Cleveland, what is your estimate at this space and time? I know the conservative estimate is $2 million it's costing us, but if we really need to fundamentally maintain them and keep them up where it is not an eyesore and is consistently cut, do we have an idea of how much that would cost us?
Through the chair to the council member, it would really depend on the expectation. If right now, obviously 7 to 8 weeks is not acceptable. So if we're using $2 million for 7 to 8 weeks, if we wanted to cut that in half, we would double it. And so again, that doesn't even account for equipment. And those are the things of why, because of those costs rising, if our vacant lots and vacant structures seem to be going up every year, it's really important or incumbent upon me as a director to make sure that I am running a shop that has good processes and things of that sort to make sure that we are as efficient as possible, so because of these costs that we may be getting into, to meet those expectations.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I would suggest that the council leadership really start looking at this issue. A number of our colleagues do have major problems in our neighborhoods, and it seems like, the situation from one year to the next is not getting any better. So how do we begin as a council to work with the administration and talk about what their true needs are financially, and then start looking at putting together a plan to change the dynamics that's happening? There's no way that as a city, Mr. Chairman, I'm able to really grow my neighborhood if I have 4, 5, 6 properties that have grass tall as in some. Unfortunately, I know you've been in our neighborhood a couple of times, but there has still a number of properties that has not been touched yet. So the question is, how do we get a handle on that? And that question is, I guess I would suggest, Mr. McCormick, what do we do to the next steps as council? Because we've been here before all the time.
Councilman, that would run through our municipal services and finance committees jointly. We would always running through our committees, if you wanted to learn more about that process.
No, it's not learning about it. It's about council's leadership taking a role on the issue of the vacant lot problem.
And we run those through our committees.
And what I'm suggesting, Mr. Chairman, because you are our leader here, and what I'm suggesting is, and no, not putting you on the hot seat here on any method, but I don't want to be waved off and poo-pooed off somewhere. I want to be able to deal with this issue head on. And so my suggestion is, and Mr. Polenzek, me and him have been talking about this now 6, 7 years now, and I don't want to be sitting here, Mr. Chairman, talking about this issue 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years from now. So I believe that we ought to grab the bull by the horn, wrestle him down to the ground, break his skull if we have to, and get this issue resolved.
Yep.
Because I don't want to waste my time talking another moment about an issue that we keep beating the same horse and it's not moving. So I would like, my suggestion is if this director needs to have an additional $2 million or $3 million, and we sit here and we got a windfall of $24 million, and we're handling other issues, we need to make this just as much of a major priority because it is a life quality issue for residents in the city of Cleveland. And, you know, I don't know about you, but I live by vacant lots. I cut them myself and have been cutting them for now 20 years. So it is a problem. And so we need to address it. I think that I agree with you, Mr. Chairman, and others. I think we have a great director here. We have a great manager in Bonnie Tewin. I'm very appreciative of the leadership that we have here sitting at the table because at least they will listen. But it's only but so much they can do if we're not making this a priority. And so I would like, Mr. Chairman, my proposition is sitting with the chairman, of course, and you're part of the leadership, and our great lady, Mrs. Jasmine Santana, and others, and really starting to put something into this to make this work for him. And then look at what the future means, how we reshape this department, how we get it into a place where it really fundamentally works. And I would suggest one of the things that the director of community development did was set up a management system because they need to build capacity to build back into the city of Cleveland the capacity to serve its residents and to improve renovating homes and doing the kind of work that needs to be done. So my suggestion is that's a great model to start from, Mr. Chairman. And then there's other suggestions I've made. If we start working on that now, then we can get that prepped and ready for legislation next year. So, but it's something that we'd have to start doing now so that we're prepped and ready and then have that in the box. And if we do that, we can knock this out in no time. And it'll be a real quick fix. And I don't mind sitting down with the chairman and you to work on that. So, but this is such a major issue, Mr. Chairman, that we must get a handle on it. And immediate attention is now, because next year, many of us are going to be facing elections. And just like that buzzer is alarming right there, right. They're going to be, that phone is going to be ringing like that buzzer on getting these grass cuts. And for,
I walk by vacant lots every day in my neighborhood
hit
as well. Maybe not as many, but I do.
Right.
And I wasn't waving you off. I'm just saying, and I'm sure I can speak for the council president. He leans on his chair people because and I think it's a good approach. Happy to be involved. He's a great chair. Happy to be involved at every step of the way. But
I appreciate you,
we lean on our
Mr.
chair
Starr.
people for that.
So, but
Thank you,
that would be my 2 cents, and I'm in full support, Mr. Chairman,
Yep.
of this piece of legislation.
Councilman Brian Casey. Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Brian Casey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, to the chief, obviously this is the first step. So when would you anticipate the split actually happening and both departments being up and running?
So through the chair to the councilman, the actual budget will change at the beginning of the year. When you see the new budget for 2025, that will have a separated budget at that time.
And at that point, and that was going to be my question. So, Mr. Chairman of the Chief, so at that point, will you be ready to say we have these 2 separate departments now? They're both ready to go up and running. So we have from July until February of next year to do whatever trial runs need to be had to figure out everything. And then starting the spring of next year is when this would actually be fully functional and ready to go.
Through the chair to the councilman, our goal is to hire a new director within a month or 2. Having that person on board working with the director of public works would help with that transition and really understanding the needs of the new department and the transition, the current contracts that are currently under public works that will need to be moved over to the Parks and Rec division or department. So we envision the latter part of 24 to be that transition and a learning as far as all the things that need to happen.
And then, Mr. Chairman, to the chief, you indicated, and the director indicated that there's no budget issues in this transition period. Do you have enough money in your current budget to hire this new commissioner and whatever else needs to be done fiscally up until you get your new budget?
So, through the chair to the councilman, at this time, when we look at it from a financial aspect, we're taking the budget and just putting in one pot or the other. As we get closer and we start looking at the new budget for 25, we will look to see if there's any areas that need to be increased.
And this is a rather large piece of legislation. Does the new position of commissioner, Mr. Chairman, to the chief, fall within that piece of legislation somewhere?
I'm sorry, the commissioner,
Oh, the new commissioner that you want to hire?
the director?
Or the director?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yes, it specifically calls out the director of Parks and Recreation.
But it may mention a director of parks, but do we have to, Mr. Chairman, to the chief or the director, do we have to establish that position first? Because right now you're not budgeted for a director of whatever you're going to call them, parks. Or
Parks
recreation.
and Recreation.
Parks and Recreation. We do not have that title currently.
That's correct.
So does this piece of legislation, even though it mentions that individual, do we have to establish that position within the budget?
This legislation creates the...
That's what I'm asking.
Yes.
So it
does
just doesn't
create
mention them. It states, it creates the position. Okay. And then, but it doesn't...
Yes, correct.
Doesn't create the salary or anything like that?
It does not.
Okay. Do we need to do that, Mr. Chairman, to the chief? To hire this person? How do we know what we're hiring him at?
Yes. The classification will need to be, you'll have the director of HR sitting here to create that director's position.
And do we know when that... So, Mr. Chairman, to the chief, how can we go out to hire somebody when we haven't a salary set or a position set yet?
So right now, there's classifications that we could hire him under. Hypothetically, if this legislation would not pass, we could still hire him under positions under Public Works that would meet the needs of his classification, his or her classification.
As Mr. Chairman and Chief, as well as salary?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm supportive of this. We've had this conversation. I just want to make sure that we're not putting any carts before the horses, right? And that you hire somebody and then you're going to come back and ask us, oh, by the way, we need this classification and we need this, because we know how difficult to hire somebody is around here. And I don't know, it sounds to me like you're pretty ambitious and wanting to get somebody on board quick. I would highly suggest that you move to Human Resources. Good luck there. And get this piece of legislation to us so that this can be established so that it can be done the right way. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good luck.
Thank
Councilman. Prior to the amendment, are there any additional general comments? Councilman Richard Starr.
Yeah, Chair, for the record, after you go to the chairman, it comes to the vice chair, then we go seniority,
Oh, that's how you do it on your committee?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, like, you just put me last like I'm a little dog. That ain't fair. No, my question I would definitely ask is, once we establish this split, will there be a new set of a budget for Parks and Recreation to be able to do more, or will they be still operating as the same amount of finances that we have in the budget through the chair?
Through the chair to the councilman, as we stated, the goal at this very moment, right, this moment in time, is that it's budget neutral. So we're taking the budget and moving it in one pot or the other. As we look and we have the director, we will be looking at if there's any additions or subtractions in different divisions that we need to make. The goal with this, and this is an evolving process, 10 years from now, the Division of Parks and Rec will not look like what we have set up now. We're really looking to be more proactive in revenue sources, that we can increase the budget if we have new revenue sources, if we have new partnerships. To answer your question, I think stay tuned, because there's a lot of variables that are going to happen with this department, and a lot of great opportunities based on possible new revenue sources and what we can do with a different budget.
And what brings us here, thank you, through the chair, did the department currently, did you complete like a SWOT analysis regarding this split? Or is this just something we know that needs to happen from Back to the Future, like Dean Polensek said?
Well, through the chair to the councilman, I think it's I've heard it from all different directions as far as the need for this to happen, to ensure that, there really is an emphasis on what our parks and what our recreation divisions do. It kind of seems like a no-brainer, why it's, taken us 2.5 years to get here. It's real a matter of our priorities and how, the timing on how we got here.
Thank you. And my final thought process is the importance of park recreation to have a more expanded budget. In order for us to have good recreation, we really got to look at the holistic approach. And with that being said, that means this director will report to you, and then that not have to work with Public Works, which is good. But I do support this. I thought I was going to be a sponsor, but I didn't get called to be a sponsor on this, so I'm just.
Would you like to be a sponsor?
No,
sir?
I do not. I'm tired of speaking my thoughts, and then next, I got to say it at the table. I'm cool. Keep me in the rear.
You sure?
I'm positive. Please take it to the bank.
Thank you, Councilman Starr.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Councilman Bishop.
Yes. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask the director, can he speak of on the equipment needs for divisions for the vacant lots? Where are we with our equipment? Are we up to par? Do we need more equipment? Is there a lot of things that we still waiting on?
Through the chair to the council member, we're still struggling with equipment, but our MVM section and our off-road shops are doing a great job this year keeping things up. But we have a lot of equipment that is either beyond or approaching its end of its useful life. The question becomes, if you scrap that piece of equipment, how fast can you actually replace it and keep moving? And that's what we have to do is we're getting through this season and then doing kind of a realistic assessment of what we can actually procure and what we can actually send to the boneyard. So right now we're kind of just keeping things together to keep going the best we can, but I really can't make a real strong statement until we get through the end of the season and really assess what is alive and what needs to go away. I would say just from off the top of my head, I would say that we are struggling as it relates to amount of equipment. How much, because of how much equipment is at the end of its useful life, I just don't know yet.
Okay, so through the chair, the piece of legislation that we passed today, we had some equipment on that. Did you have any equipment on those on that piece for vacant lots?
Through the chair to the councilman, of course. But a lot of that equipment is just replacement equipment, not necessarily additional equipment. So that's what we'll be coming back to you, or what I'll be making recommendations to the administration for assistance going forward. So now some of that, I would also mention, some of that is also because of those gaps in equipment. That's kind of why we're using also the local contractors and utilizing other help for that to kind of fill in those gaps for when we are waiting for equipment to be built.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilman. Do I have any amendments on the table?
You do, Mr. Chair.
Councilwoman Spencer.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I wanted to direct our colleagues' attention to the tablets. There is an amendment to 521-2024 on your tablets. I would very much like to thank Chairman Bishop for his support with the introduction of this amendment, which I will be introducing with Councilman Charles Slife. And I want to create some context or explain some context for the amendment to our colleagues. So Councilman Slife and I are asking for your support for this amendment, and we have spoken with many of you individually. Apologies in advance to any we did not get to one-on-one. But this amendment proposes to create a standalone division of urban forestry under the new proposed Department of Parks and Recreation. And this would also include a new Commissioner of Urban Forestry position. As we all know, Cleveland has some very, very lofty tree canopy goals and to meet, but for years it's been all too easy for the urban forestry section to get lost in the conversation. In our view, that is because currently urban forestry is under the Division of Parks, Maintenance, and Properties, which is under the Department of Public Works. And so because urban forestry is under Parks, Maintenance, and Properties, this council has never been able to examine forestry's budget separately to understand the degree to which we are or are not funding our urban forestry operations. And this will also add increased transparency, and along with that will come increased accountability, and for council to truly dialogue and understand urban forestry's operations. Councilman Slife and I believe there will be minimal budgetary impact on this, on the budget. The administration supports this change. I would like to truly thank the chief and the Commissioner of Parks, Maintenance, and Properties, Urban Forestry Section Manager, and Director of Public Works and Assistant Director for dialoguing about this. And a couple of other notes to add are that first, the Urban Forestry Commission, which I will shout out our colleagues, Councilman Casey and Councilman McCormick, who rebirthed the Urban Forestry Commission, their baby. The Urban Forestry Commission held its quarterly meeting yesterday and unanimously supports creating this new division. In addition, there was a major announcement yesterday from the President Joseph R. Biden administration. $3.4 million is coming to Cleveland through Inflation Reduction Act funding for urban forestry. That announcement, I think the press release came to your inboxes about an hour ago, about Job Corps and $3.4 million in Inflation Reduction Act funding with support from Senator Sherrod Brown's office and the Bibb administration to lobby for those funds. So it's really, the time is right to create a standalone division of urban forestry. I'd like to tee it up to my colleague, Councilman Charles Slife, to talk about the amendment or anything else he would like to add.
Councilman, before you start, I also want to recognize Councilwoman Spencer, who is our resident tree advocate as Lorax, and our appointment on the commission, who's done a fantastic job.
I echo all.
So, Councilman, you're going to start with a second to that motion.
I will second. Well, was a motion formally made? Did
Yes.
you, or did you just
Oh, did you
describe
not?
it?
I make the motion to amend 521-2024 to create a standalone division of urban forestry.
Alrighty.
And I will second. And in a moment, I will read a portion of the formal amendment. If you read the title of the legislation, there's the area that says, and amend various sections of the codified ordinances. The amendment itself is 21 pages long, and if you want me to read it, I will read it to you. But essentially, the bulk of it is amending all other sections of the codified ordinances applicably, but it becomes very lengthy. But if Councilwoman Spencer is the resident tree expert, I have maybe come into this maybe from a different angle, where I tell people that I would never have guessed in November of 2019 the volume of calls that I would receive into my office that center back to tree lawn trees. That's whether a tree lawn tree needs to be maintained, a tree lawn tree is damaging sidewalks, affecting sewers, dropping materials, people want a new tree lawn tree. It is a surprising volume of calls, as I said. And one of the frustrations or challenges that I think I've noticed is that if it's the intent of this council to just say, for example, put $500,000 towards stump grinding, which has been a challenge over the last couple of years, practically that money goes into the Division of Parks Maintenance, which is co-located with money that is used to mow lawns at parks, maintain park infrastructure, et cetera. So while it could be the intent of the council for that money to go towards a specific goal, there's less of an assurance on the back end that that is exactly what will happen through the budgetary process. So by having a separate standalone division, I think it gives this council a greater oversight of what the true scope of our tree issues are, and allows us to recognize that maintaining parks for public-facing program and maintaining our urban tree canopy are not inherently the same thing. Before I read, Councilman Spencer had said that we estimate this to be a very modest, if any, impact on the budget. In speaking with the administration, it is likely that they would put in a new budget analyst position into a new division. The midpoint salary for that salary range is about $50,000. And then there would be a manager position that would become effectively a commissioner position, which would be a new pay band. And if that person got an increase, it could be in the tens of thousands of dollars. But it's in a budget of this size and in a budget that has so many vacant positions, it's also very possible that they are just absorbed into the fold. But we expect if there's a budgetary impact, it would be no, it would not be six figures. It would be less than that. So for the sake of the audience, just for everyone here, briefly, the beginning of the amendment would be to add a new section 13311, Division of Urban Forestry. There is established a Division of Urban Forestry in the Department of Parks and Recreation, which shall be administered and controlled by a Commissioner of Urban Forestry and subject to the provisions of the Charter and ordinances of the city and to the direction of the Director of Parks and Recreation. And then furthermore, the Commissioner of Urban Forestry shall, with the approval of the Director of Parks and Recreation, appoint all officers and employees in his or her division. The Commissioner shall control and manage the removal of dead and hazardous trees, prevent unsafe conditions relating to tree growth, trim trees for clearance of streetlights, traffic signals and signs, pedestrian and vehicular traffic and building clearance, remove overgrown tree roots that cause raised sidewalks and overgrown tree lawns, develop, coordinate, and implement the city's tree canopy, and provide public information regarding the care of trees. I will not read the rest of it. So with that, I think Councilwoman Spencer and I are happy to field any questions and to move this over to the discussion phase.
Thank you, sir. I've got a amendment on ordinance 521-2024 motioned and second. Do I have any discussion? Councilman Starr.
No, I have a couple questions I have regarding this tree lawn stuff. Is there anything within any ordinance that's been passed that requires if you get rid of a tree line, you have to add another tree line?
Is this, so right now it's discussion on the amendment?
Yes.
Do you want to have that after the amendment?
I'll probably have that after the amendment
Okay.
because I understand that you're getting ready to separate this to a third division. So I'll probably take that to discussion after this.
Okay, great. Any discussion on the specifics of the amendment? Councilman Moore.
Thank you very much, Councilman. I just want to express my enthusiastic support for making urban forestry a separate division. I'll echo everything that Councilwoman Spencer said, which is that it has been so hard to track the budgets of our trees, and everything gets, it gets muddled when it's across multiple different sectors in one division, like parks maintenance and properties is right now. And so by making the Division of Urban Forestry a separate division, we have a real chance to actually tackle the budget. And one element of this that hasn't come up yet is this extensive multi-million-dollar backlog in basic tree maintenance that we are dealing with as a city and that this council has discussed in the past. And we really need to wrap our arms in the coming years around what the year-over-year maintenance amount is going to be for our trees, because right now that multi-million-dollar backlog is only the result of constituent complaints. It's not the result of a systematic and continuous review of of our tree canopy within the city of Cleveland. So I am in full support of this, and I know that this is only the first step, but this is a necessary step to begin building a type of structured budget that will actually allow us to properly maintain our trees. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman Harsh, discussion on the amendment.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I also completely support this. It's hard for some people to understand or to accept sometimes that we need trees more than they need us. Trees are good for our mental health, whether we accept it or not. They're good for our energy costs, whether we accept that or not. And they are good for our neighborhood housing values, whether we accept that or not. However, trees are very easy to cut down and very hard to replace. So restoring the canopy in Cleveland is a very urgent matter, and it's something that I'm glad Councilwoman Spencer and Councilman Slife have taken the time to put this together in such a thorough fashion. So 100% support this. I'm glad to see it here. And I don't know if you can add your name to an amendment, but I will if we can.
I think
yeah,
it's
okay,
first,
don't worry about it.
You can vote for it.
Hey, I'll vote
You'll
for
be on
it,
the
yeah.
record, yeah.
Did you vote for it?
Councilman Conwell on the amendment.
You know, kind of, you mentioned the budget, tree maintenance, shades. You know, on the east side in my ward, where I live at, there's not a lot of trees on the east side. And if this could help us with that, because it's almost like a redlining of trees in the Glenville, Fairfax, Huff area. And we need trees over there, because you look at shade, I mean, you really don't have it over there. To compare and contrast what's on the west side to the chair, to Jenny Spencer. Have you ever taken a look at that?
Yes, absolutely. And the overall canopy goal for the city is 30%, but most neighborhoods fall far below that. The Cadell neighborhood in my ward is 16% coverage. Wow. I don't know what Glenville is off the top of my head, but it's really a citywide problem. And I think that when the administration comes to the table to talk about this $3.4 million grant from the federal government, the Inflation Reduction Act, talking about the uses for that, I think the council will really also have a chance to have a robust discussion around the maintenance needs that we've been talking about, but also the planting needs. And another point that I think will come up is data management. We don't actually have a data set of our trees. We have a complaint database, we have a work order database, but we don't actually have an overall snapshot of our urban forest. We don't have a tree inventory. So I believe that will be, I don't want to speak in great detail about it, but there's many different components that we are really on the precipice of improving with this investment, but also just really honing our attention on urban forestry as a council and as an administration.
You know, Councilman?
Just to add to that, and just to kind of show the level of thought that went into this, there was a question of should this be under public works or parks, and one of the reasons that really the administration helped us see the value of urban forestry being under parks is that it increases the availability of sort of outside funding grants, that it's a more compelling argument to demonstrate that we're not just treating our trees as a piece of infrastructure or a service, but that it is about comparable to parkland and public health. So the optimistically, we hope that we can continue to get outside dollars to help supplement our own tree goals. And then just a separate from this, but something just to put on the back burner, is one of our challenges right now is in a lot of neighborhoods like Glenville or like East 79th near Huff between Huff and Superior comes to my mind. There's just not a tree lawn there to plant a tree, or there's power lines. Like, we're pretty constricted in where we can plant trees. So I'd be interested if in some analogous way to how we declared racism as a public health crisis, and that gives us additional tools, can we recognize that the entire tree canopy has public health benefits and maybe open up more possibilities for us to plant larger trees on private property so that we can get the canopy back in places like Glenville if the real estate doesn't exist on a traditional tree lawn.
Yeah, we need that. That's the need. But you know what? With the discussion with the budget, do you think it needs more money, or do you think the budget through the chair need to be fine-tuned? I mean, you could throw money at things, but if that culture is the same, that you're moving it out. Because here's an example. Councilmember Mike Polinsky and I have seen a lot. Right. And so here's a quick Reader's Digest version of the story. And I need you to listen to it also, Chief. we took building and housing out of community development. This was back in 06 or 07. And you know what? It never got any better. It just stayed stagnant. It stayed right there. So just moving something out of something, if you don't manage it right, if you don't do a strategic plan and look at it on a quarterly basis, strategy reviews, where you're going, if that culture is still there, Chief, even like dealing with the recreation department, it will stay stagnant the same way. And just because you moved it out doesn't make that it's going to be efficient or whatever the case may be.
Thank you, Councilman. I will just respond by saying I think this council will be in a better position to ask the right questions because we will have, in our fiduciary responsibility, better oversight of forestry. We will be better equipped to ask the necessary questions. But also, thanks to our colleagues McCormick and Casey, because we now have a reconstituted Urban Forestry Commission that restarted a year ago, that is the best shot I think we have of creating that culture of oversight you're talking about and mutual accountability and support for this new division. I think there's a higher level of scrutiny. If we didn't have the Urban Forestry Commission, I would be much less enthusiastic about this idea, but there is an active body whose mission is to support the success of urban forestry activities of the city of Cleveland.
Yeah, I understand that. Here's the thing. If you don't have, when you do this urban forestry, at least a strategic plan, you look at the background history, where it came from, and then you look at where you're going, and you just say you took it out of there, and you looked at the budget. The budget is going where, through the chair? If you have, if you can't measure your goals and your objective results, where you want to go, we just took it out of there. And it would be like building and housing was in 2006. You got to be, and you mentioned oversight. Well, you got oversight, what do you got to measure? Pre-testing, post-testing. If you don't have that stuck in there, it's not just the budget. And look at the culture. If that culture doesn't change, you got the same thing, we're scratching our heads, the same issues and concerns. The same issues and concerns. And you got to do a SWOT analysis with it as well. I mean, I'm serious. If you're going to have true oversight, we have to do that to the chair, to Jenny. It's not just the budget.
Yeah.
And when you say budget, you're telling me what when you say budget? It says budget, but when you say budget, that's equipment, supplies, money, and people. That makes a budget up. And so you say budget, you got to break it down, and so you can manage it, the outcomes. Through the chair to the council lady.
Thank you, Councilman. Through the chair, I think you're calling out the difference between a strategy and a budget, which I think is really important. I will say that there's a Cleveland Tree Plan. So there's been a Cleveland Tree Plan in place for several years, which is a guiding document. But back to what Councilman Starr was raising, I think there's a long way to go. All right, he'll come back to it. But for example, we don't do our own planting right now. No. So that's an example of, I think this council can begin to ask the questions that could lead to a different allocation of resources and planning. And I hear you. So I don't know if I have a perfect answer to that.
No way.
But
you know what I would look at in our closeout? Two things. We used to have tree farms. What might get? Nobody else know about the tree farms. We used to have tree farms here, and then we sawed them all off. And then if you get the tree farms, then you can cultivate the trees, and you pull them out and plant them. That's what we had. And my other suggestion is that we look at lessons learned in other cities, what's going on there as well. And I close.
Thank you, sir. Any final comments on the amendment? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes.
Gadwell,
Yes.
Ray, yes. Harrison, Harsh,
Yes.
House Jones, yes. Jones, Casey,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
Moore,
Yes.
McCormick,
Yes.
Valencia, Santana, yes. Sly,
Yes.
Thank you. Alrighty, the amendment carries. Councilman Starr, did you have a final comment on the piece as a whole?
Thank you, Chair. I thank you for thinking of me.
I'm always thinking about you, my man.
You know what I mean? Sometimes the stepchild be getting left behind. No, the things that I definitely wanted to highlight is we know in the past, Cleveland used to be known as the forest city because we had a lot of trees. And I think that's what Councilman Conwell was talking about during this conversation with Councilwoman Spencer. But then the thing that I look at is from the lessons learned. If we once was the forest city and we no longer the forest, known as the forest city, I believe the fact that we're a city, there's a reason why. And what I want us to understand is one of the issues and challenges I have in Ward 5 is this notion that once we get rid of a tree, you add another tree. But if you look at what possibly was happening 100 years ago, and then you look at today, a lot of these trees that's on the tree line is damaging the sidewalk. I get calls from residents asking me to help repair this sidewalk. Okay, well, if you repair the sidewalk and coming out, you look up and see that it's the actual tree and the roots from growing within has damaged the sidewalk. So therefore, residents is asking me, how do I get rid of this tree line? So if I get rid of this tree, now someone is telling me you need to plant another tree. So therefore, 100 years from now, when Mike Polensik and Con will still be here, we will then have them figuring out, like, hey, this tree that we are planting, like the Tree Coalition, they said, I think by 2040, they want to have planted 28,000 something trees here. But nobody's talking about the root cause of the problem is no maintenance. They're not keeping them up. They're just planting them everywhere, and they're causing more harm than this quote-unquote technology that is more helpful. No, I am not a person who's saying I'm against tree planting. What I'm saying is if it's causing issues to infrastructures and sidewalks, well, why would I keep planting another tree if I just got rid of it right there or something like that? So my question to the tree experts and my colleagues who know a little bit more about trees is how does this help us if I'm still dealing with this situation, not the separation, but more so how do I get more help? Because when you reach out to urban forestry, they're not helping me. They're not helping me get trees. And then if I want to use discretionary funds, I'm told you can't use it because now they start talking about, is it a private property or is it a public property? It becomes so many different barriers where you're just trying to get something cleaned up that is causing harm to the infrastructure or the places live at. Like I have somewhere in North Broadway, right off of, right by Willow at Broadway Academy is a side street. The tree has the sidewalk doing the pyramid, and the tree ain't getting cut down. I can't get the city to cut it down because then it's technically private property. So therefore, I'm trying to go to urban forestry, you won't get no call back. So even if we move them into a division, is this going to help handle these issues that I'm having? And those are the questions and concerns that I just want to know. How do I get to a solution on these trees that are being planted or been planted 100 years ago that are causing harm to the infrastructure and sidewalk?
Yeah, that's just one example of the growth curve that is needed. I mean, there's a lot of different challenges with forestry. Councilwoman Moore mentioned the backlog of maintenance. You're mentioning tree damage sidewalks. There is a tremendous amount of work to do, and I look forward to there being a commissioner of urban forestry with whom we can really have those conversations, those dialogues. In response to your question specifically, there is the tree damage sidewalks program. I believe, and I don't want to speak out of turn, that is automatic on streets that have been recently resurfaced. Does anyone else? Okay.
They're paid for by ARPA.
Unless they're paid. Oh, good to know.
And they're 5
That's an
years
asterisk I didn't even know about. Okay, but in general, any of our newly resurfaced streets, the year following, you come along and do tree damage sidewalks and do a leveling of sidewalks without disturbing the tree roots. But I don't know in terms of the one-off complaint-based sidewalk damage. I actually don't have a perfect answer to that, and I'm hoping we can follow up on that. And I will just say that, right now, in terms of our public street trees, most of those plantings are being handled through partners. We as a city are not doing that. And I think our manager of urban forestry herself would say we don't, at this point, have an effective program to plant street trees. We can plant them, but it doesn't mean that they're going to establish and flourish and survive and serve a public purpose as infrastructure, because trees are infrastructure. So right now we are relying on a whole host of partnerships for tree planting, and I'll leave it at that, but there is a lot to it, unfortunately.
I'll just quickly add, I know there are some solutions that we've been pushing for in situations like the raised slabs. I know Councilwoman Moore has been pushing for, there's kind of a almost like a rubberized concrete that you could replace the sidewalk with so that the roots have a little more room to wiggle and grow. Other cities do that. And then another one that I'm trying to do right now on Fernshaw Avenue is getting approval from private property owners to have the sidewalk actually swing into their yard. You'll see some communities do that. So it's going more around the tree that is no longer in the public right-of-way, but that gives the tree the space that it needs, and if the property owner agrees to it. But unfortunately, both of those processes right now have not been as seamless as we want, and we've continued to advocate for it. I'm optimistic that having someone at a commissioner level focused exclusively on preserving trees will give a little more oomph to those conversations and allow us to start to implement what other cities do to try to save a tree without causing people to trip and fall over a broken sidewalk.
Thank you, Ed. Thank you, colleagues, to the chair. It's just frustrating to me. Then you look up these third-party organizations be in all type of fields planting trees, and you ride by like, oh, they planting trees, and next thing you know, I get them calls about them other trees. So I don't know what the perfect solution is. I do support this amendment to this ordinance. We're creating its own division and own department, but whoever that commissioner is going to hear from me asking about solutions. I don't get a chance to say I don't know to these residents. I get told this tree is damaging all the sidewalk. This whole sidewalk needs to be replaced. Can't just replace a little small part. If you did that, then next you know that sidewalk gonna come up again. Tree damaged sidewalks is 5 years behind. They were supposed to catch up this year when we gave them a second contract through MOCAP, but that unfortunately has not done. And therefore, if I have to resurface the street for them to come back to next year, it just looked like a no solution based to this problem or this issue that is causing. So I yield to my colleagues. Thank y'all for their understanding and answering some of these questions. I look forward to diving deep into this tree lawn issue and figuring out how we can work together. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilman. Appreciate that. Okay, hearing no other comments or questions, ordinance number 521, 2024 as amended stands approved. Please sign. Thank you, Director.
Thank you, sir.
And happy birthday to your daughter, my friend.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much. Shayla.
Happy birthday, Shayla. All right. Okay, last but not least, and not appreciated, Director, come on up. How are you today?
Hello.
Thank you for hanging out with us.
No.
Hopefully that you don't have a child's birthday today.
I do not.
All right.
I do not.
Okay, Director, I got a stack for you, so why don't we just dive right in?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Let me get to where you are.
Mayor's Office of Capital Projects, ordinance number 582, 2024 by Council Members McCormick, Bishop, Harrison, by departmental request. Emergency ordinance to authorize the Director of Capital Projects to issue a permit to Burgess LLC to encroach into the public right-of-way of Follett Court by installing, using, and maintaining a private sanitary sewer line and a private storm sewer line. 582, Director.
Yes, this request is for utility connections for a new home being built at 2020 Follett Court. There is no public sewer available along the property frontage to service the parcel. This encroachment is necessary, and I will pass to Commissioner DeGennaro if she has anything to add for this.
I don't, thank you.
I'm fully aware and support this ordinance. Are there any questions on 582, 2024? Councilman Casey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the Director, are we paying for the infrastructure to put these utility in, or is that falling on the cost to the developer?
Would you like to answer that, Suzanne, or?
Through the chair to the councilman, I don't have the answer to that question, but I can find out and let you know.
I thought this was paid for by the developer. That was my understanding.
Private. Reading the description more, it does say using and maintaining a private 6-inch sanitary sewer and private 6-inch storm sewer line, which by description means that it's by the developer paying for it, but we can confirm.
Mr. Chairman, to the director, I just want to confirm that because we had this same issue over on West 128th when Habitat needed to was putting in new homes and there wasn't the infrastructure for water or sewer lines. And I just want to make sure that we're not paying for it and that whoever the developer is, this is going to fall on the cost of them.
Absolutely, Councilman. If we could find that out in quick timing, thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Agree with you completely, Councilman. Any additional questions on 582? Hearing none, 582, 2024 stands approved. Please sign. I mixed myself up a little bit here. Are you 594 next, Director? What do you got next?
Yes,
584?
we have 594 as well.
That's your next one up? Mm-hmm. All right. Ordinance 594, 2024 by council members Bishop and Griffin by departmental request. An emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Capital Projects to apply for an accepted grant from the United States Department of Transportation for the 2024 Safe Streets and Roads for All grant, authorizing the Director of Capital Projects or appropriate director to enter into contracts to implement the grant, determining the method of making the public improvements of constructing safety improvements on Lee Road, Lorraine Avenue, and East 93rd, and through quick build demonstration projects on Kinsman Road, Superior Avenue, and Dennison Avenue, authorizing contracts to make the improvement, to apply for and accept any gifts or grants from any public or private entity, authorizing the Commissioner of Purchase and Supplies to acquire, accept, and record real property and easements that are necessary for the improvement, and authorizing other agreements. Director, 594.
Yes, and I apologize. Matt Moss was waiting here patiently to present.
Is that him?
Is it coming through the door? No, it's not him.
Are you going to
we
move on
could
to the
just
next
move
one?
this- Yes.
Yes, ma'am. So can we, 584? Does that work for you? What do you got next on your list?
Yes.
584? All righty. Ordinance number 584, 2024 is amended by Councilmembers Bishop and Griffin by departmental request. An emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Capital Projects to employ one or more professional consultants or one or more firms or consultants to perform various construction activities for roads, bridges, and city facilities, not to exceed a total term of 30 months. Director.
Yes, we are looking to supplement our staff with other professional service providers, specifically for inspection work. We have found ourselves in the fortunate position to have a lot of projects to be completed, and we just need the additional support to complete those projects.
Okay. And what is the cost of this, Director?
This is $3.7 million.
$3.7 million. I'm stuck. All right, and this is for, okay. Permitting, inspection, okay.
Yes.
And this is for new projects
For new
that are coming
projects,
online? Okay.
correct.
In your internal staff, you don't have the capacity internally to do
Right.
this?
This is supplementing our internal staff, yes.
Okay. Councilman Bishop, have you reviewed 584, sir?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I reviewed 584, support this piece of legislation.
Okay. Do I have questions on 584, 2024? Hearing none, 584, 2024 stands approved. Please sign. All right, Director, I've got 612. What's next on your list?
We've got a long list.
I
We can do
unraveled
612.
these.
Absolutely,
All
that sounds good.
Ordinance 612, 2024 by Councilmembers Bishop and Griffin by departmental request. Emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Works to execute one deed of permanent easement. I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. 584, 2024 passed as amended. Excuse me. Authorizing the Director of Public Works to execute one deed or permanent, thank you, Clerk, of permanent easements and two deeds of temporary easements granted to the Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District, certain easement rights at several city-owned properties located along Belvoir Boulevard within NERSD's 9 Mile Creek Debris Rack Project. They need to get an acronym for that area, and declaring the easement rights not needed for the city's public use. Director, 612.
Yes, this ordinance is requesting access, well, Sewer District is requesting access to their project area for construction and future maintenance, and Commissioner DeGennaro will provide additional details for that.
Thank you, Director. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, the Norset has requested to place a debris rack in 9 Mile Creek on city property. 9 Mile Creek traverses city property out near the border of Cleveland Heights and Cleveland, near Belvoir Boulevard. There's a culvert, an existing culvert that carries 9 Mile Creek under Belvoir, and upstream a ways, there's a very heavily wooded ravine. And so what's happening is a lot of large woody debris, we were just talking about trees, rushes downstream, gets into the culvert, jams it up, lots of flooding. There's a lot of erosion behind the wing walls of the culvert. So Norse's proposed solution is to place this debris rack near the opening of the culvert. They'll also build an access road off Belvoir to get down in there to clean it from time to time. And so they need this permanent stormwater easement. It's about 1/8 of an acre. And they've also requested 2 temporary construction easements, to be used for construction and staging. Those total about 1/8 of an acre. So 3 easements, 1 permanent, 2 temps. They're going to be donated by the city or transferred at the cost of $1 in exchange for Norset alleviating these flooding headaches for the city.
Thank you. Commissioner, is there any cost to the city of Cleveland for these easements?
No cost.
No cost. Any questions on the debris rack on Belvoir Boulevard? No questions. Ordinance number 612-2024 is approved. Please sign. Director, Ordinance 641-2024 by Council Members Bishop and Griffin by departmental request. An emergency ordinance determining the method of making the public improvement of designing and constructing, rehabilitating, renovating, replacing, or otherwise improving cemeteries, including site improvements and appurtenances, and the West Park Cemetery Gatehouse, and authorizing the Director of Public Works or Capital Projects as appropriate to enter into one or more public improvement contracts for the making of the improvements, enter into one or more professional services and other contracts needed to implement the improvement, to apply for and accept grants and gifts, and authorizing the direct employment of necessary labor for the Department of Public Works, Office of Capital Projects. Tell us about the West Park Cemetery Gatehouse.
Okay, and I'm
641.
double checking to see if we don't have it, because this is in relationship to our capital improvement plan. And before we dive into that, I want to make sure we get through our other ones. Can we do 619? Because I would like to do all those together. So
Oh,
cemetery,
sure. You want to
recreation,
do...
facilities, all of those are.
Oh,
part of
shoot,
the
I
capital
skipped
improvement
619.
plan.
It's sitting right in front of me. All right,
Presentation.
Director. 619-2024 by Councilmembers Polensek, Bishop, Harrison, and Griffin by departmental request. An emergency ordinance appointing an assessment equalization board to hear objections to estimated assessments with respect to improving Euclid Beach Boulevard, the entire street, and East 159th Street from Euclid Beach Boulevard to Lakeside Avenue, by design, inspection, reconstruction, repairing, and/or installing of roadway, sidewalks, driveway aprons, curbs, including adjustments of castings and landscaping if necessary, storm sewer structures, and other necessary appurtenances if necessary, approaching upon the public right-of-way. Director, 619.
Yes, this addresses the equalization assessment hearing that we will be assembling for this project along Euclid Beach Boulevard and East 159th Street. Those persons that have received an assessment and have a complaint will be presenting that complaint to this board. The board is made up of Robert E. Cahill, Michelle Felder, and Chris Garland, and we have 2 alternates. One is Paula Morrison, and the other should be listed here. Got the other one here. I had it here. Well, one is Paula Morrison. She is actually the one listed in the ordinance.
Okay.
Teresa Sutton is the second responding alternate.
Thank you, Director. So this is the new infrastructure being put in the Euclid Beach Park area off of Lakeshore Boulevard.
Yes, that's right.
This ordinance establishes appointed an assessment equalization board for estimated assessments for objections.
Yes.
Any questions on 619? Councilman Polensek, this is your ward.
I'm here to support.
Good to go. 619-2024, additional questions? Hearing none. 619-2024 stands approved. Please sign it. You are welcome, sir.
Okay. The one that we skipped.
Yeah. Mary, do I need to reread this if I already read it? Should I reread it? The intro of the ordinance? If I already read one, I'll just reread it. Okay. Sorry. Ordinance number 594, 2024 by council members Bishop and Griffin by department on request. An emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Capital Projects to apply for and accept a grant from the United States Department of Transportation for the 2024 Safe Streets and Roads of All grant. Authorizing the Director of Capital Projects or appropriate director to enter into contracts to implement the grant, determining the method of making the public improvement of construction safety improvement on Lee Road, Lorraine Avenue, and East 93rd Street through quick build demonstration projects on Kinsman Road, Superior Avenue, Dennison Avenue. Authorizing the contracts to make the improvement, to apply for and accept any gifts or grants from any public or private entity. Authorizing the commissioner purchases and supplies to acquire, accept, and record real property and easements that are necessary for the improvement, and authorizing other agreements. Director, 594.
Yes, we have Matt Moss from City Planning joining us to provide you more details and information about this grant.
Mr. Moss, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. I have passing around some slides here, or one slide rather. There's a map on the reverse page as well. There should be copies circulating as I speak.
Okay.
This slide just gives you an overview of essentially what you just read, Mr. Chair, the request for the grant. This is similar to the piece of legislation we were here before you all last month for the 2023 application. This is now the 2024 application. Safe Streets for All is a federal program with recurring grant opportunities, and we were successful in our 2023 application. We're seeking to apply again in 2024. This would be for the total amount we're eligible to apply for, which is $10 million. Because it has a 20% match, the total project is $12.5 million, so that includes our local match. This would help finalize the construction design for 3 corridors, as you read out: Lee Road between Invermere and Miles, Lorraine Avenue between West 20th and West 65th, and East 93rd Street between Broadway and Quincy. These are capital projects that our Capital Projects Office is already working on. We're very pleased to partner with them, the Planning Department, with capital projects on this grant application. And so the local funds that we're using for the design of these projects is the match for the federal grant. So this will help us leverage those local funds to not only get more resources for these projects, which we're already anticipating we'll be asking for federal funds to construct, so they'll already be federal projects. So this makes our dollar go further. And it'll also, we included also demonstration activities following the safety audits we were funded to do in our 2023 application. So that's the encompassing of the ask. I do have the budget if you have specific questions. Happy to answer whatever you have.
Thank you. So there's no new money out of here from the city. We're leveraging existing dollars allocated as a local match. Is that correct?
Right. That's correct, Mr.
So
Chair.
and this legislation allows us to apply.
That's right, and accept the grant if we're awarded.
And accept it if we're awarded. We better accept it if we're awarded. That's great federal money. What questions do I have on the Safe Streets and Roads for All federal grant application? Hearing none, ordinance 594, 2024 stands approved. Thank you, Mr. Moss.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, so Director, the rest of these guys are your their bonding.
Do you have 333 in your stack?
Sure don't.
No.
What is it?
It is an authorization to issue a permit to UC City Center.
Clerk, do we have 333? Is that on the tablet? Hold on. I don't have it on the tablet either.
Okay. We're thinking it didn't make the agenda.
Not on the agenda. Okay.
That's fine.
Moving along.
Moving along.
So, let's see. Would you like to start with, what makes sense, 641? That makes sense?
Sure. I can do the presentation and then.
Oh, okay. On all these?
Yeah.
Oh, great.
All together.
Sure. Thank you.
All right, well, that time of year again for the capital improvement plan overview. You should have on your iPads the actual full presentation, which includes some appendices, so to say, but we'll go through the PowerPoint now. Which one do I push? Where do I point?
Is that not?
Sometimes if you touch it.
Well, let's see.
Now try it.
Where did you push? This. Okay.
Okay. There we go.
Thank you. So the capital improvement plan is essential to the operations of the city of Cleveland and its residents. The plan prioritizes long-term capital projects and commits funds to ensure the city's public facilities, infrastructure, and equipment are sustainable now and in the future. So the definition of capital projects, we have those that are considered new construction, expansion, innovation, or replacement projects. We also have purchases of major equipment, which are considered assets. And what makes them a capital project is they have a useful life of 10 years or more. And then we also have major maintenance or rehabilitation projects for existing facilities. This is considered capital maintenance. And what also makes them capital projects is that they have an economic life of at least 10 years. And all of our capital projects, as we present them, must be approved by bond counsel so that they qualify and meet the definitions of what capital projects are. So the different bond types, and these are the ordinances that you have. One is for facilities, one is for recreation, one is for cemetery, and the other is for road and bridges. And we do not discuss airport and public utilities capital improvement plans during our presentation. So this is a very iterative process. We pull together people from our team, from administration. Everybody kind of gives an input into what type of project should be included. Then these projects are prioritized based on regulatory and legal needs, any commitments that we have, such as written commitments with other organizations, as well as grants or funding commitments that have been made. We also prioritize by safety and conditions, and this is determined through assessments that we conduct, and there are also mayoral priorities that we consider. Then we move forward and request projects and annual capital needs from all departments and chiefs. Once all this information is gathered, then we just keep checking, keep having conversations, and that's what makes this an iterative process, and we also come to council for their input as well. As last year's was published, it was the 2023 to 2025 capital improvement plan. This is published by the finance department, and it is available on their website, and we also have a link on MOCAP's website as well. So for this year, our annual capital spend is just at $64 million and some change. I'm gonna have to look at the exact amount, but we average about $65 million per year in capital funds. For public facilities, it's $30.5 million, with $3.7 million going to facilities and $16.8 going to vehicles and equipment. Recreation is at a total of $11.8 million. Roads and bridges is $32.4 million, and cemeteries is $1 million. And our capital bonds this year include $11.5 million in funds that we captured from closed projects. So in those closed projects kind of presented an opportunity for remaining project funds. So our capital bonds are typically $65 million, as I mentioned. We are required to spend 80% of those bonds within 3 years. So this too is a cyclical tracking of where our project status is. Remaining project funds are used when available to supplement new bond proceeds for spend down. And this means that we are able to capture those funds and apply those to new eligible projects. So examples, the Music Hall Improvement Project, we were able to capture $1 million from that. And typically what happens if we are estimating our projects, we're adding contingency, there are differentiations in cost, or we don't use all of our contingency, so we may have a remainder in our budget. So we are able to capture those remaining funds and apply them to new capital improvements. For the 24 remaining or requested funding, this map highlights where those projects are. So anything that is in a bold color is for our 2024 requested funding. Anything that's shaded is 2018 to 2023 approved funding. And we just want to kind of illustrate how our projects are spread across all wards, and prioritizing that each ward does receive funding for capital improvements. So what we were able to do is add some additional projects into the MOCAP 3-year fund based on council priorities that we received. So we asked all council members to let us know what their priority projects are. We looked at those priority projects. We ranked them based on our prioritization process, and we were able to add these projects. And what these suggested projects also enlightened us on was that we do have a need for some additional programs. So one program is for cameras, cameras in some of our parks. We have some parks that will be undergoing some rehabilitation work and through our additional funding efforts. But the ones that will not be, there is a gap in that camera opportunity, so we'll be looking at those for cameras. We're also looking at public parking lots to provide funding, as well as sidewalks within the park. So the information you all provided has helped us to kind of craft some different programs that we'll be focusing on in the future. So ARPA, back to basics, when we have applied those funds. So to recap, that was $30 million towards roadway and park improvements and traffic calming efforts, and we have been working hard to complete those projects. For the street projects, we are complete in all wards except for Ward 1, 8, 9, and 10, and we were waiting to renew our street repair contract. So that was just signed July 3rd. And so we anticipate that projects in those wards will be completed by the end of the summer. And that is the overview of our capital improvement plan. But in your packages and on your, I think your iPads, there is additional information. So the first is the actual spreadsheet for all of the capital improvement projects that we are pursuing for the 2024, 2025, and 2026 budget year. And I don't know if you want me to just walk through these.
Are they correlated with any of the ordinances?
Let's see if they, no. Well, they do. Yes, they do. They do correlate with the ordinances. So we have public facilities first on this spreadsheet, and then following that will be recreation. Okay. Okay. So the first project here is the City Hall Modernization Program. We have design work planned for 2024, construction plan for 2025, and phase 2 design in 2026. The 2024 budget is $900,000. On-call professional services, this is something we do every year for engineering and architecture services. That's $600,000. Public Works Roof Program for 2024, that's miscellaneous roof repairs, including masonry, windows, lintels, etc., at the East 65th Station. And for 2025, that's roof repairs at Car Center. And we have an estimated $3 million for those projects. Next, page 17 for 2024, public auditorium life safety improvement projects. Phase 1 is construction, is electrical improvements. 2026 phase 2 is design, that's $1 million. Ridge Road Transfer Station for 2024, tipping floor repairs, 2025 tipping walls and scales, and 2026 wash down drains separators, and the 2024 budget for that is $1.5 million. Moving on to page 18, Public Safety Mechanical, Electrical, and Plumbing Program. We are still assessing that work, but we are budgeting that work for $900,000. Public Safety Roofs and Exterior Program. This is roof repairs, miscellaneous work, including masonry, windows, and lintels, etc. And this is for various fire stations. This work will also be determined by assessment, and we are budgeting $900,000. Fire station number 1, fire prevention system, $355,125. Police headquarters, security fixtures and equipment that is the city's responsibility. That's $4 million.
1 second.
Sure.
Mr. Point.
I was going to check. We're going to make her read each one of these line items as if we incompetent, y'all. I mean,
Sometimes members want folks to go through the entire packet, and sometimes not.
yeah, I'm going to step out.
No? You got questions? Yeah. Okay.
Just point of information. $4 million for the police headquarters. That's on top of the $90 million? Another $4 million on top of the 90?
And Mark, you want to answer that? Because I know there's some details.
Thank you, everyone. Through the chair to the councilman. Yes, that is for what we refer to as below-the-line costs, which are typically necessary items for a capital project that are not included in the construction contract.
But it says fixtures. That would be part of the building.
It's more of a generic term for furnitures, fixtures, and equipment.
Okay.
So that's what this money is for.
So on top of the 90.
That's correct.
Thank you.
So, do folks want the director to walk through it, or do we want to go through the legislation and then ask questions about the specifics? What's the will of the table?
Whatever you call it.
All right, then we'll go through the legislation,
Okay.
director, and then folks can pull out specifics and go from there.
Sure will.
All righty. So let's start, director, with 641-2024 by council members Bishop and Griffin by departmental request. Emergency ordinance determining the method of making the public improvement of designing and constructing, rehabilitating, renovating, replacing, or otherwise improving cemeteries, including the site improvements and appurtenances and the West Park Cemetery Gatehouse, and authorizing the Director of Public Works or Capital Projects as appropriate to enter into one or more public improvement contracts for the making of the improvements, enter into one or more professional services and other contracts needed to implement the improvement, to apply for and accept grants and gifts, and authorizing the Director of Employment authorizing the direct employment of the necessary labor for the Department of Public Works or the Office of Capital Projects. Tell us about 641, Director.
641, as you mentioned, is to allow us to go for funding, bond funding, to make the repair at West Park Cemetery for the gatehouse for a total of $1 million.
Any questions on the West Park Gatehouse? All right. Is this? Oh, it is.
It is.
Is this Ward 13? Okay. Okay. The West Park Cemetery that's not in West Park. All right. 641-2024 stands approved. Please sign. Director, 642-2024 by council members Bishop and Griffin by departmental request. An emergency ordinance determining the method of making the public improvement of designing and constructing, rehabilitating, renovating, replacing, or otherwise improving public facilities, buildings, and or other similar structures, including the site improvements and appurtenances, and authorizing the Director of Public Works or Capital Projects as appropriate to enter into one or more public improvement contracts for the making of the improvements, enter into one or more professional services and other contracts needed to implement the improvement, to apply for and accept grants and gifts, and authorizing the Director of direct employment of the necessary labor for the Department of Public Works or the Office of Capital Projects. Director.
Yes, we are proposing a total estimated cost of $13,727,955 for general obligation bonds to make repairs for public facility purposes. On the list, we have the City Hall Modernization Program, on-call professional services, Public Works Roof Program, City Hall renovations, Public Auditorium life safety improvements, Ridge Road Transfer Station, Public Safety Mechanical, Electrical, and Plumbing Program, Public Safety Roofs and Exterior Program, Fire Station #1 Fire Prevention System, and the Police Headquarters.
Alrighty. Do I have questions on 642, the list that the Director just read out? Hearing none, ordinance 642-2024 is approved. Please sign. Director, ordinance 643-2024 by council members Bishop and Griffin by departmental request. An emergency ordinance determining the method of making the public improvement of designing and constructing, rehabilitating, renovating, and replacing or otherwise improving recreation facilities, ancillary recreation buildings, parks and playgrounds, and other similar structures or amenities on city-owned and city-leased park property, including site improvements and appurtenances, and authorizing the Director of Public Works or Capital Projects as appropriate to enter into one or more public improvement contracts for the making of the improvements, enter into one or more professional services and other contracts needed to implement the improvement, to apply for and accept grants and gifts, and authorizing the direct employment of necessary labor for the Department of Public Works and the Office of Capital Projects.
Yes.
Director.
Yes, we are estimating a total cost of $11,838,500 to complete approximately 12 projects throughout the city of Cleveland. These are all park and recreation-related projects. They are as follows: the citywide park security camera program, the parks capital maintenance program, the rec roofs and envelope improvement program, recreation center locker room improvement program, pool improvement program, synthetic field capital repair program, Coudale Commons Park, Coudale Recreation Center kitchen, Frederick Douglass Recreation Center site improvements, Gunning Recreation Center solar upgrades, Jefferson Park, Carouge Park improvements, Lonnie Burton Recreation roof repairs, park tree planting, Parks Public Art, Rockefeller Greenhouse and Urban Forestry, Stora Park, Woodland Recreation Center, and Zelma George Recreation Center.
Thank you, Director. Do I have any questions on 643, 2024? Be the list that the Director just read out. Councilman Bishop.
Mr. Chairman, can you give me a clarification on, now you said it's 11,838,000. What is the 8.6 million? What does that number represent?
The 8.6 million. I'm sorry, where are you referring to?
On page 26. You got two figures there on page 26 for the rec bonds.
Yes, so the total estimated cost for all of the projects is $11,838,500. The 8.6 is the actual calculation of all of the project costs on the spreadsheet that you're looking at, but we have been able to identify some remaining funds, as I mentioned during the presentation, and we're allotting those remaining funds to some of the projects that are on this list to give us the balance of 11.8 million.
You say the remaining funds?
So in the presentation, I mentioned that in previous projects, some of our other bond work, if we overestimated our cost, if we had contingency, then we were applying that to other capital projects.
Okay.
And so you're seeing that reflected here, some of those remaining funds.
Okay. All right,
Thank you, Councilman. Any additional questions on 643? Hearing none, 643, 2024 is approved. Please sign. Director 644, 2024 by Councilmembers Bishop and Griffin by departmental request. An emergency ordinance determining the method of making public improvements or designing and constructing, rehabilitating, renovating, replacing, or otherwise improving roadways, streets, bridges, sidewalks, and other similar projects, including site improvements and appurtenances, and authorizing the Director of Public Works or capital projects as appropriate to enter into one or more public improvement contracts for the making of the improvements, enter into one or more professional services and other contracts needed to implement the project, to apply for and accept grants and gifts, authorizing the Director of direct employment of necessary labor for the Department of Public Works and capital projects. 644, Director.
Yes, we are requesting $2,750,000 to go towards road and bridge repair work. There are multiple projects here because we heard from all of the council people and what their priorities are, and we did try to capture them. Memorial Bridges Loop Trail, 50/50 Sidewalk Program, North Marginal Connector, Old Lorraine Trail, Slavic Village Downtown Connector, Section 1A, Bridge Major Repair Program, Capital Project Infrastructure Professional Services, CWD 50/50 Program, General Engineering Services, Signal Pole Replacement Program, Tree Damage Sidewalk Recovery Program, Tree Damage Sidewalk Program, Tree Planting, Bessemer Avenue Railroad Crossing near East 80th Street, Carnegie Avenue Phase 2, Carnegie Avenue Phase 3, Carter Road Lift Bridge Phase 1, Columbus Road Lift Bridge, Lee Road Transformational Project, Payne Avenue Phase 2, Shaker Boulevard, Storer Avenue Streetscape, Superior Separated Bikeway Transformational Project, and Villa View Road.
Thank you, Director. What questions do I have on 644, 2024?
Sure.
Councilman Bishop.
Okay, this is pretty much the same. So I see on page 25, the total road and bridge bonds was 25.1 million. Okay. And on the next page, on page 26, you have a figure of 25 million, and then you also have 32.3 million. Explain the differences of those. Is that the same that the same thing that we had on the recreation facility?
Yes, it is. That's correct. It's the remaining funds.
Okay. And now, the remaining funds, that figure, where can we find those on this sheet?
So,
You have those on this sheet?
yes, 1 second, please.
Is that the $7.2 million on page 25?
Page 25. I'm sorry, repeat the number that you just referenced on 25?
So under remaining funds, on page
Yes.
25, you got the 7.2 million.
Yes, that's the column that calculates those remaining funds.
And those total up to the 32.375.
Yes, correct.
Thank you, Councilman. Any additional questions on 644? Hearing none, 644, 2024 is approved. Please sign. And then I think I got one more for you, Director. 645.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Alrighty, ordinance 645, 2024 by council members Bishop and Griffin by departmental request. An emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Capital Projects to employ one or more professional consultants necessary for the Dominion East Ohio Gas Pipeline Infrastructure Replacement Program for a period of 1 year with 4 one-year options to renew exercisable by the Director of Capital Projects.
Yes, so this is an ongoing initiative with the Dominion East Ohio, which I believe is now called Enbridge, if I'm correct about that. We are in the 15th year of a 20-year, $2 billion pipeline infrastructure replacement program. And this is to add resources to ensure that as they are doing that work, they are returning the infrastructure to the technical specifications that the city requires. So this is making sure that our tree lawns, our curbs, our sidewalks, and our pavement meets our technical specifications by the contractors that they hire to do the work in the field.
Thank you, Director. And are they not required to do this anyway?
Yes, all contractors are required to make sure they meet the technical specifications, but our role in this is to make sure that we have inspectors that can identify that and track that and make sure that it's done properly. So this project allows us to identify those additional resources to make sure that those technical specifications are being met.
Okay. To make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing in the first place.
Exactly.
Sad that we got to track them down like that.
Yes,
but-
we do.
Okay, do I have any questions on 645? Hearing none, 645, 2024 stands approved. I think we're good
That's
to go,
good.
Director?
Yep, that's my.
All right,
do you-
folks.
Yep, that's
I think I'm done. Anyone else with any other legislation?
Gary, what about 719?
What is that? What is that? I don't know by heart the numbers. What is it? What's that? Oh, that's, yeah, intro only. That was switched to intro only, so that will be heard in committee. Sorry, yep. Okay, 30 minutes, clerk, is that what you need? All right, nope, that's what she told us. 30 minutes. So we will convene in council chambers at 6:20. 6:20, 6:20, 6:20. No.
Good job, man.